Folks, the Celtics go up 2-0 against the Brooklyn Nets, 114-107. And I got to say, it's still hard hat season, Sherrod. Sherrod Blakely live from the TD Garden today, or tonight, I should say. Just another unbelievable fourth quarter for performance from the Celtics. They outscored the Nets, what was it, like 29-17 in the fourth quarter. This team takes it up to another level in the second half, in the fourth quarter especially. Sucked the life out of this Nets team. Kevin Durant, I think, called an Uber with a couple minutes left in the fourth. He wanted nothing to do with the end of this game. Sherrod, just take me through what it was like there in that fourth quarter and second half, I guess specifically.
This was a great, tremendous crowd. I was talking to a friend of mine with TNT, and he talked about how just this really felt like an NBA Finals, Conference Finals type atmosphere. There were so many different moments in the game where the crowd was just electric, unlike with anything we've seen this season. Pritchard hitting that big three ball that put him up 2 in the fourth was one of those moments. Grant Williams had a couple of those type of moments as well. This was the Celtics doing what the Celtics have been doing all season, just grinding it out, giving themselves a chance to win, and ultimately down in the fourth, getting someone to step up and take charge. Often it's Jason Tatum. Tonight, I thought it was Jaylen Brown. Peyton Pritchard, as I mentioned earlier, hit some really big shots, made big plays. But at the end of the day, this is kind of, Jimmy, what I told you from the beginning. I mean, the Celtics, they're just a better team. I mean, I don't know how to put it than just they, from top to bottom, are the better team.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. And I think, Sherrod, there might be some video issues. Okay, it's just going to be me. Okay, Sherrod, try to figure out your video over there. If you can, maybe jump out and jump back in. I will hold it down here for a minute solo. Okay, it's good. It says it's good, so I think you're good now. But Sherrod, I'll give you some credit. You and Bobby specifically weren't exactly as high on the Nets you weren't. Yeah, you weren't as high on the Nets.
No, you're right.
And John were. And John's not here tonight. He had a previously scheduled event. It just so happens to be 420. I don't know if there's a connection there, but John cannot be on the show tonight. He will be back Saturday. But if he was here, I would think you would have to admit that what you just said, Sherrod, the Celtics looked like the better team, certainly through 4 quarters. Now, the Nets did the Nets thing in the first half. But what I said, and I think a lot of people said, is Celtics were only down 10 points at halftime. And that was with just 7 points from Tatum, 7 points from Brown. It felt like the Nets didn't do nearly enough to, sort of break away from the Celtics. Every time they would go up about 13, they'd let the Celtics claw back in. Second half comes around, Celtics cut the deficit in half, go into the fourth quarter down 5. And then I just thought they outworked the Nets. I really thought they were getting to the loose balls, the turnovers, the defense on Kevin Durant. I know we'll talk about it throughout this show, especially when Bobby and Josue get here. But, man, they just made him look miserable out there. This is a guy that looks miserable more often than not, but, man, he just looked extra miserable out there on the court. Felt like he had to work and work and work for everything. Poor shooting performance. Missed a lot of shots, outside shots. And just they were just so physical with him. And I think that's the key is the physicality from the Celtics, the tenacity on the defensive end. It's been their identity since they really started to turn the season around. And it's really, really apparent in this series. You have one team that has bought into defense and has bought into what their coach is preaching. And you have another team that, to be quite honest, Steve Nash, I don't know what he's doing out there. He's certainly not tapped into this team to the point where they're playing inspiring basketball. And that's to be said all season on the defensive end. But tonight, they just looked flat in that second half, especially.
Well, in the second half, I would agree with you, Jimmy. I mean, they definitely looked like the Brooklyn Nets that we've been basically crapping on for the longest time, no question. But the first half, I give Steve Nash credit. He made some adjustments, particularly on how they defended Jason Tatum, that I thought was really huge for them to, frankly, be in control of this game in the first half. But when you watch the way this game was playing out, it felt as though Brooklyn should have been up by like 15 or 20 points for most of the half. I mean, they were getting all the 50-50 balls. They were shooting, mid to high 50s, low 60s for a large chunk of the first half. And yet the Celtics were easily with a 2-3 minute spurt away from evening the game up or even taking it over. And so the Celtics only being down by 10 in the first half, good feeling for them because they knew they were going to play better. It's just a matter, could their defense step it up and get the stops that we're accustomed to seeing them getting? And they did just that. I thought there were so many moments that were just clearly the Celtics basically
instilling
instilling
their
their
will.
will on Brooklyn. Yeah, and Brooklyn couldn't fight it. Brooklyn, I mean, they snatched Brooklyn's soul again. Uh,
Again,
Game one, they snatched the victory. This game, they snatched the soul when it mattered. So
soul snatchers. And you know what? Talking about game one, the difference between Kyrie Irving in game one and game two, especially in that fourth quarter, I mean, he looked borderline invisible in that fourth quarter. I mean, I can't remember a single thing really that he did out there. And it was, what did you notice from Kyrie tonight? Was he as engaged out there in the court? Was he as distracted? It almost feels like he needs to be more distracted by the fans. You didn't see anything back and forth between the fans or anything, but it's effect. I mean, 10 points on the game for Kyrie and really just not much of anything. No help, certainly, to Durant in that fourth quarter.
I'm just gonna say it right now. If you're trying to figure out what the hell happened to Kyrie, I'm gonna just give it to you in 2 words: Marcus Smart.
There it
I mean,
is.
Marcus. I mean, when the points that Kyrie scored, they came on broken plays where Kyrie was matched up against either Tice or another defender, or he was wide open and he made those shots. But when he was being guarded by Smart, he could not get anything. I mean, to me, this was Marcus Smart's Defensive Player of the Year acceptance speech tonight. I'm going to go out there and I'm not only going to play well, I'm going to put the clamps on one of the best scorers in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Smart has had some great defensive games throughout his career, but I don't know if he's had a better one in a meaningful game against a top shelf player as good as Kyrie Irving. I mean, this was as good as I've seen Marcus Smart defend any top shelf elite
Yeah.
player. And again, Marcus Smart, all he simply did was kept Kyrie in front of him. And he didn't get a lot of help when he was defending Kyrie, which I think for Brooklyn, that's a problem because if you can put one guy on Kyrie and no one and doesn't really need much help, that means you're not going to get those opportunities to take advantage of a defense that you're expecting to take advantage of when you have a guy like Kyrie. And Kevin Durant, I don't know what the hell is going on with him. I mean, he was 9
You
for
weren't
24
Jason
game.
Tatum, right?
Tatum has done a good job on him, and they've thrown a lot of different bodies at him, but Kevin just doesn't look right.
It's
Uh,
physical, I think. Yeah.
I think it's physical, and I think it's starting to become mental. I mean, he had a moment in the game where they were clearly in need of a bucket, and he literally just lost the damn ball out of bounds. Shout out
Yeah.
to the Celtics fan base because I mean they got ridiculously loud in that moment, and it just seemed like Kevin he just he just blanked out. So I'm not sure. I mean, we don't know whether him being back in Brooklyn is going to bring about a different Kevin Durant or a Kevin Durant that we're accustomed to seeing. But he has just been out of sorts. And I think part of it is certainly the Celtics defense. But I think part of it is also just Kevin is just not playing well. And I'm
Yeah.
not
Six
sure whether,
turnovers.
again, yeah. Well, the turnovers, the poor shot selection, the missed shots, the fact that he's not getting a lot of space, he's picking up lots of fouls. I mean, he just looks like a very slightly above average player, which for most people is a compliment. For Kevin, it's a diss because he's a phenomenal player, and that we're not seeing that in this series, not
He's
even close.
phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, he's going to go down as an all-time great player, regardless of
Yeah,
where you rank him. I mean, that's how talented he is. But when you're playing on a Nets team, you need to play like an all-time great player because they're just not a deep team. Now, they did get some help tonight from Bruce Brown, who had a nice
right.
bounce-back game after game one. But when you get
Mhm.
10 points from Kyrie, you're going to need 40 from KD. That's
Yeah,
just the way it's really realistically, you need more than that. But it just wasn't it was a game where it just felt like you said, Sherrod, they kind of stole their souls there in that second half. And it looked like Durant was just frustrated, ready to just call it a game and get back to Brooklyn. And that's what we have. We have a 2-0 series Celtic lead. Going back to Brooklyn, another couple of days off here. I believe it's a Saturday game. I'm not sure what
yep.
time off the top of my head. Is it a night game or is it? I
I
don't even
believe
know.
it is.
Okay, so you get a nice Saturday night in Brooklyn. The Brooklyn fans, if there are any real Brooklyn fans, should be as loud as they've ever been for this one. I mean, they're going to need to be. My question to you, Sharon, and I know we'll get into it later as well, and I already know Bobby's opinion on this, but is it still a series? I firmly believe
Yes.
that you got to win a road game. You got to win on the road before you call it a series. And this until the
Yeah. I
Celtics
mean,
do that, I'm not ready to say that it's a done deal by any
no,
stretch.
it's definitely a series. There's no doubt about it. But you've seen Brooklyn deliver, I think, really two good punches at the Celtics in games 1 and 2,
Yeah.
and they have nothing to show but 2 L's for it. Game 1, I thought their game plan for the most part was near flawless. Kyrie Irving led the way. Kevin Durant was kind of more of almost like out there, but not really putting his imprint. And yet they had their chances to win the game and couldn't get it done. This game, Kevin Durant was trying to establish himself. Kyrie was trying to establish himself, but Bruce Brown was the beneficiary of a lot of the attention those two guys got. But once the game settled down a little bit, and then you had to go through KD, you had to go through Kyrie, the Celtics weren't having it. Like I said, Marcus Smart, I think this is maybe the best defensive game he's had all season. When you look at just his impact defensively, the fact that Kyrie had just 10 points, and I think he may have had 2, maybe 4 against Marcus, if that. That's you don't. When you look at Kyrie's body of work, you're not going to see too many games
That's
like
a resume thing. Where you put that at the top of the
Yeah.
resume on a game like this. A playoff game, prime time, up against 2 of the most talented offensive players in the league for quite some time now. Marcus Smart wins Defensive Player of the Year award, and that's when you start to hear a lot of people say, "Really? Like, where did that come from? Since when was he in the running? Does he really deserve it? Why wasn't it Gobert? Why wasn't it this guy or this so and so was screwed?" Marcus Smart hears that. We know we know he's keen to what's being said about him. And I'm not saying that. First of all, Marcus Smart doesn't. I don't think he needs to prove to anybody that he is the Defensive Player of the Year. I think that his highlight reels, his stats, his style of play, heart, whatever you want to call it, I think that all speaks for itself. And I think that enough people have recognized it this season, and he's earned the award, rightfully so. But you wouldn't be Marcus Smart if you didn't go out there and play with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and say, "Oh, really? You still don't think so, huh? Okay. Well, how's this look? How's this? What do you think now? What do you think after we go out there and I shut down Kyrie Irving and we make it extremely miserable for Kevin Durant? So I think it's just another feather in the cap, I guess, for Marcus Smart's season. Don't forget it was a lot of people, me included. I'll say it. I was a little skeptical about the contract extension at the time. I didn't know if that was the greatest deal. But now I can't imagine there's anybody out there that would even think twice to re-sign that contract, to re-sign Marcus Smart for the money that he's making and for what he gives this team. Ime, mentioned at the beginning of the season, he talked about the pillars of the team. He talked about Tatum and Brown, and he was asked about Marcus Smart, and he said Marcus Smart was as well. And I don't think that's wrong at this point. I think Marcus Smart is while he's not going to give you 40 40 points, what he gives you on the defensive end and what he does provide you offensively and how he does get the offense in gear and how he is thinking more like a point guard kind of does make him a pillar of this team.
Well, Jim, if you think about it like this, Kyrie Irving gets 10 points, and this is a guy that is a consistent 25 and north of that score. So you chop 15 points off of what he normally gives, and you score 12 points. That's 27 points. That's all-star. That's top shelf talent.
Yeah.
Impact. And the thing about Marcus that I think that often gets overlooked is that he feeds off of negativity. He feeds off of haters. I mean, you don't have to really go too deep in detail to kind of get him fired up. He knows that there were people who thought that he deserved the Defensive Player of the Year, even though night in, night out, he's locking kids up.
Yeah.
There was a different kind of energy, a different kind of focus, a different kind of edge with him in this game, and certainly what was at stake. Having a 2-0 series lead, the guy that you matched up against, Kyrie Irving, someone that you know very well, pride kicked in. I mean, pride and purpose. Marcus played with both of those at a high level, and that's what you need if you're trying to win a championship. If you're trying to be one of the last teams standing, you're going to need games like this where your best player at that end of the floor gets it done. And I don't know how much further we're going to get into, but at some point we got to talk about Pritchard and Grant Williams. Grant Williams, he did not miss a damn shot all game.
No, absolutely.
All game. And he made some big ones. I mean, in the first half, it looked like the Celtics were just like maybe 1 or 2 possessions away from just getting blown out the water. And then you've got Grant knocking down big shots, keeping them within striking distance. He was so big in this game, so big.
Yeah, I would agree. Grant Pritchard, and I know we definitely need to get into Jaylen Brown as well because I thought he had a up and down start to the game. But man, same with game one. Man, he comes alive in that fourth quarter. He sets the tone. He kind of paces the team, and he gets them into that aggressive sort of like puncher's mentality. I feel like Jaylen Brown, they kind of take on a little bit of his identity here the last two games, especially in that fourth quarter, and his toughness, I think, leads the way. And guys like Grant and Pritchard, with the massive 3-pointer there, just kind of like balls of steel, takes that three. They're down, or it was either a long two or a three, but it put them up two. I think it must have been a long two then. But either way, I mean, it was a nice little move by Pritchard, gets the Celtics to the lead, and they're just playing with the swagger. And I feel like Jaylen Brown right now, and really even going into the playoffs for the last month or so, has really found his groove. And yeah, he had a couple of turnovers, ball handling, the things that we've seen from time to time. But 9 of 18 from the field, 22 points, a couple big threes. And again, it's the mentality I think that this team is playing with right now. And they're, talk about physicality, but how about the mental toughness of the Celtics team? And I think Jaylen Brown is a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the fact that they get down big and they're looking at the scoreboard. I'm like, well, we just got to come back and beat these guys. You don't see any panic. You don't see any nervous Nelliness about them. They just get the job done when it needs to be done. And it's not one guy, it's not two guys. It really has been kind of a collective cohort that gets it done, whether it's Pritchard with a big three, Grant Williams knocking down shots, Al Horford, hitting that, back to the future button and playing like Al Horford from 5 years ago. You start
That's
looking
another
at
story
all
for itself is Al Horford. Man.
Right. And that's and to me it's sad because I mean as good as Al was, there's so many other stories from this particular game
Totally, I know.
that are bigger deals. I mean, Pritchard again, didn't play a ton of minutes, but man, he was so impactful in when he was out there. Same thing with Grant. And even though Derek White didn't have a great game, Derek White did some good things out there as well. So that to me is what makes this team so scary. This was a game where no one really played a great game for the Celtics, but they had a lot of guys that played really good. And if you're going to beat a team like the Brooklyn Nets, who again, I've made no secret about it. I'm not a big fan of their team. I just don't think they're that good.
Right.
You're going to have to be challenged. Just because I don't think they're that good doesn't mean I think they're a horrible team. You're going to have to play well to beat them because they have to assess in their lineup with Durant. You can go off for 30, 35 points any given night. And as we've seen, Bruce Brown is a guy that if you're not careful, he can have a big game. Goran Dragic is continuing to kill the Celtics because he always kills the Celtics no matter where he goes. They did a much better job on Nick Claxton, I thought, in this game because Nick, I thought, got a little loose last game, not so much in this one. And again, you look at the numbers. I mean, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant combined 8 for 30 shooting. That's just not going to get it done. No. Not going to get it done.
So I want to go back to Pritchard just for a moment because you brought him up, and I think he deserves his flowers. I mean, this is a guy we've talked about him at points, this season, obviously, and we knew that he had to have some sort of contribution on this team because they got rid of Schroeder. Schroeder was the guy that came on, and when he did come into the season, I think everyone knew that was going to be Pritchard minutes. And credit to Pritchard, man. He didn't make a stink about it. He kept working at it, and when his opportunity came, he rose to the occasion. And now he's getting serious playing time here in the playoffs. His second year in the league and hitting big shots. And it was a long two. He didn't hit a three tonight, but his ability to he's a great little ball handler. Can shake opponents, create space for his shot. He's obviously not the biggest guy on the court, so he needs to find ways to create space, and he does it. And he has balls of steel out there. Like he'll take a shot from any point on that court, and you kind of have to honor it. You have to defend it because he's shown his range, and if you can have that range off the bench, that's pretty invaluable, at stretches during games. And so talked about Grant Williams, and Grant Williams doing it on the defensive end too. When he gets put on Durant, I mean, he had a nice steal on Durant in that second half there when Durant turned it over, right out of bounds. And another example of, I think, frustrating Durant because he sees Grant, playing up on him, playing in his face, same with Derek White, playing up in his face. And, when he's off ball, they're throwing screens his way and making him run through everything. And I just think that, whether it's Pritchard, whether it's Grant, this bench unit, which isn't deep. We knew that going in. This wasn't a deep bench. But when it comes to the Nets, they might be even shallower. So I think that that bench unit has really stepped up here. And one person I should say we haven't mentioned a whole lot yet is Ime Udoka. I thought this was another great coaching performance from Ime. He obviously had his guys' ears at halftime because I thought they came out with just a different brand of basketball. Not to say that they played uninspiring in the first half, but it felt like they were kind of falling back into some of the old traps. Bricking threes, little carelessness. Certainly wasn't extremely strong in the defensive end, even though Durant and Kyrie weren't doing the work. I mean, you had Bruce Brown score the first 9 straight of the game. You had players contributing. Dragic again that was doing his thing, was a game high, I think, at halftime, which just shouldn't happen at any game in his career moving forward.
Right.
But they came out. Something flipped a switch, for them in that second half, and I think Ime again, he's a real focal point of this team's success the second half of this season.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that he's doing, I think, a pretty consistent job with is he's figuring out which buttons to push to get guys to step their effort game up. Because when I watched him play in the second half, I don't think that they're necessarily doing these plays that are all that amazingly awesome to see. I think a lot of it is just effort. And I think he has been able to instill that as a non-negotiable when you get in the fourth quarter and you get in close games. It is, you're not going to play if you're not giving great effort. That's why you're seeing guys like Peyton Pritchard out there doing what he does well, which is knocking down shots. Grant Williams being able to be, one of the more versatile bigs, able to switch defensively, and when you're open, make a shot. That's the thing that what Grant did in this game was so simple, yet doesn't happen enough, or doesn't happen necessarily as much as he would like and the Celtics would like, and that is make teams pay when they give too much attention to Jalen. They give too much attention to Jason, and they're basically daring you to make a shot, and he made them pay. This was a really, really, really good team win, and to get a win like this on a night when your best player, Jason Tatum, has a horrible night shooting the ball. I think he missed his first 6 shots. And he started. He had a couple of moments where he did the, well, I'm not getting that call. I hate when he does that. I absolutely hate it. But he didn't allow his poor shooting to take away from making an impact. And that to me is the difference between Jason Tatum now versus Jason Tatum 2-3 years ago. If he wasn't making shots, he was useless. He wasn't going to give you anything. His defense would be average, but as those shots continued to fall, his defense tended to also kind of set back. But great defense, I thought, for most part tonight. Shot wasn't falling, but he was finding guys, dropping dimes. He was doing the things that your best player is supposed to do when the one thing that they're supposed to be great at isn't working. Jason has built up a significant number of countermeasures that he can implement on those nights when he's not knocking down shots. And that's how you make that transition from being a really good player to a top 10 player to being a top 5 player. And he's trending in that direction.
Yeah, I co-sign with that. I mean, like you said, a little bit of a slow start to this game offensively, but when you're being tasked with also guarding Kevin Durant, that's a tiring assignment, and no excuse, but I'm sure that Ime and the rest of the team will take a couple of those misses if it means clamping down on Durant and making Durant miss twice as much or whatever on the opposite side. So you gotta take the good with the bad there. I'll also say this about Tatum. Closed out this first half pretty great, with the fast break dunk, and then he had the 3-pointer there, and then the big boy shot, the kiss of death, the dagger, whatever word you want to use, that 3-pointer there, they kind of put them at just far out of reach where I think the Garden must have been rocking after that shot. But those shots or that specific shot right there, that's a big boy shot. That's like, that's the type of shot that you take when you're taking the leap. And I feel like this season, especially in the second half, and let's see how far they go here in the playoffs. to me, he's at that point where he's taken that leap, and this is just another example, another highlight shot to put in this reel of a situation where you needed your superstar or your future superstar to be a superstar, and that right there to me was that's got to be up at or near the top of the list, is that shot that he hit there in that late in that fourth.
Yeah, I mean, Tatum, and we've seen him just as he's kind of grown as a player. He's also grown in being comfortable in those moments and not in delivering, and that's really what it ultimately comes down to. I mean, yeah. So I mean, Tatum, this was not a great game for Tatum, but when the game absolutely mattered most, he showed up. He made the plays that he needed to make. He knocked down the shots that had to be knocked down. And flip side of that, defensively, I mean, he spent a lot of time with Durant, and he did as good a job as anyone on Durant. And again, the Celtics, they continue to make Kevin Durant look mortal. Kevin Durant, for most of his career, has just played at this otherworldly level. We've never seen a guy that tall who could score at all levels. And Dirk Nowitzki comes to mind as a 7-footer who could do that, but he couldn't score the way KD can. And Dirk is great, Hall of Famer, loved her, one of my favorite players when he played. But Kevin Durant is better, and so to limit a guy like that.
Dirk's a good comparison.
In back-to-back games. I mean, this it wasn't as if this was like a one-off. I mean, Kevin Durant was as bad or worse in game 2 as he was in game 1. And again, because he's so good, the bar is set so high that a pretty good game for most guys is a horrible game for Kevin Durant. I mean, you score 27 points, you score 20. I mean, he's averaging basically 25 points a game, and we're talking about him as if he's not good. He's great. But that's what happens when you're great. Your level of expectations is great, and he just hasn't met that yet.
No, yeah, he hasn't met that. I mean, 4 for 17 from the field. I don't even think Kevin Durant would be the first one to tell you that he was off today. And if not for some, maybe some whistle happy refereeing tonight. I mean, the game got pretty damn slow at points with some of those off the ball fouls too. I think he may even have less points to his name tonight.
Yeah, there were some questionable calls, and questionable from the standpoint of you were calling those calls at one point, and then you stopped calling them at another. And Durant, and again, I mean, he shot really bad from the field, but he spent a shitload of time at the free throw line. I mean, he just lived at the line. 23 throws. I mean, there are teams that don't get that many free throw attempts.
Embiid level.
And he, right. And so, again, he definitely benefited from that. But the Celtics, I give him a lot of credit. They were more than willing to keep him on the line than to let him see shots, 2s and 3s go down. So this again, Kevin Durant, still one of the greatest players to ever play the game, but he has not been very good in this series at all.
No. So Celtics go up 2-0, 114-107 win. We're here with Sherrod Blakely. I'm Jimmy Toscano. This is CLNS. If we have some new viewers tonight, hopefully we do. We do this show after every game. We haven't missed a game collectively since the bubble. It might be 2 of us. It might be 5 of us. It might be any combination of me, Sherrod. We have Bobby Manning at the TD Garden tonight. We also have Josue Pavon at the TD Garden tonight. Both of those guys will be joining us momentarily here. They're doing their thing in the press rooms or in whatever access that they're able to get. They're doing that right now. John Zanis can't be with us tonight, but he will be back Saturday. So we'll probably have a full squad Saturday, I would imagine, Sherrod. It's always good to have the crew together. Are you going to Brooklyn, Sherrod?
I will be heading to Brooklyn this weekend. Yes, I will.
Rod will be there, and I think Bobby and Josue are going there as well. So we are traveling, folks. We've got some pretty solid access, and hopefully some more fun games coming up. So just a little reset there for you guys. I know a lot of you are anticipating Bobby and Josue joining us, so they will be here at some point. But Sherrod, how about the mood tonight? The mood tonight in the arena. I mean, this has been a season, and you were there at the beginning of the season, and it got ugly. There were some boos raining down on this team. There was a lot of non-believers, not just in the arena, but all over the city, on this show. A lot of people in the chat. Somebody in here specifically wearing a hard hat was a non-believer for a bit, rightfully so. What's
Well,
based on what we're seeing here, realistically, how have the expectations changed for this team?
well,
What,
I mean,
what's the vibe?
yeah, I mean, the expectations that they've done a 180. I mean, no longer they've gone from being a team that, man, if only they can make the play-in game to now where it's like, man, if they don't get to the NBA Finals, what the hell is wrong with them?
Yeah,
This team has exceeded any and all expectations at the beginning of the season, and they've done it the way you're supposed to. Their head coach had a plan, a way that they needed to play, and I think their most important player is Marcus Smart, who bought into that. And then Marcus had to eventually convince Jalen and Jason and the other guys to buy into playing a little bit different, playing with a little bit more of a defensive edge. And that's not to, no shade or knock against Brad, because Brad's defenses were among the top 10 for most of his time as head coach. So it wasn't like they weren't playing defense, but what they're doing now is on a completely different level. And again, you got to give Ime credit. The biggest, to me, the game changer for this team was making Rob more of a free safety like
yeah,
defender, and not have him just attached at the hip with bigs. When they made that decision, everything changed defensively because it gave all their really good defenders cover if they have some slippage.
right.
I think back to when they were out in Golden State, and the play, this play is like it's just kind of like scorched into my brain. I'll never forget it. Derek White was defending, I think it was like Jordan Poole, and he got beat off the dribble, and Jordan is going in for a layup, and Rob was outside the paint on the opposite side of the court, and he gets there in time, blocks. Not only does he block the shot, he blocks it off the backboard and it lands in the hands of Derek White, who just got beat. Now, how the hell good does that feel when you get your ass beat defensively and not only do you not give up a layup, but you get the ball back so you can start to break. Um,
Nice
that's
little
how
insurance
that's
plan.
how yeah, I mean that's how good Rob has been defensively. And again, the cool thing about the Celtics is that they don't get beat a lot off the dribble. I mean that's one of the reasons why Marcus Smart is Defensive Player of the Year. Because
Right.
that crew, the perimeter defenders, they don't get beat that much. And we've talked in the past about Peyton Pritchard. And the one thing I will say about him that is pretty damn obvious is he competes. He's not the
Yes.
biggest guy. He's not the strongest guy. He's not locking anybody up defensively. But you're not going to punk him out there. You don't see
Right.
guys
They're
posting him up.
confident.
Yeah, exactly. And guys may be able to shoot over him, but even when they shoot over him, those are contested shots, and you can live with those. And
Hmm.
so they have really figured out how to impact the game on several levels. But everything for them, again, it starts with their defense. If they ever veer away from having their defense lead the way, that's when they get in trouble. As
Yes.
long as they keep their focus on making sure they're handling their business at that end of the floor, that's going to open things up at the other end.
I got a good question for you, if I do say so myself.
Of course you do, Mr. Hard Hat. I'm just going to
All
call you
right.
homeschool Hard Hat.
So for anyone who came in late, the hard hat is the playoff hard hat. This comes on when the team goes to work. And in the playoffs, you got to go to work, put the hard hat on, grab the lunch pail, get in the steel toe boots, and just go to work. And tonight, the Celtics deserved the hard hat treatment. They played a hard hat type of game, especially in that fourth quarter. So that's why the hard hat's on. You'll see it after every playoff win. Now, Sherrod, for the good question. You covered the NBA champion Detroit Pistons. You covered the NBA champion Boston Celtics. Do you see any similarities with this team and those two teams in terms of the ability to perhaps maybe call themselves a champion or at least put themselves in the game in the series? Basically, what I'm saying is, does this team have the DNA based on you've covered this team all season? How do you compare it to those teams that you covered?
I think they're somewhere in between those two teams. And if I had to lean them one way or the other, I'd say they're probably closer to being Detroit-like, because Detroit had a shortened rotation too, and their rotation was primarily built around defense. I mean, they had Defensive Player of the Year just like the Celtics do. With Ben Wallace, Celtics had Marcus Smart. You had guys who could score the ball in Detroit, guys like Chauncey Billups and Rip Hamilton. You've got Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. You had wings who were more defensive oriented and were just kind of quasi role players, like a Derek White. They had Tayshaun Prince, and to me,
Yeah.
one of the things that I find interesting is that you had a head coach who had total buy-in by his players. Larry Brown got that from the guys in Detroit. Ime is getting that from the guys here, and that's what you have to have in order to compete for a championship. It's not about who has the best team; it's who has the best buy-in of what works. Who understands what their role is and takes pride in that role night in, night out. Marcus Smart, it's taken him a little bit of time to get to the point where he's more than just an elite defender. He's been wanting to run the team forever. But when you start looking at the guys he's played with, guys like Isaiah Thomas, guys like Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward,
Yeah.
it's clear why you didn't have him in that role, because those guys were better in that role. And Marcus was better defender, better off the ball. So you understand that and you get that. But this team, the Celtics, they're kind of scary because they've played two games where there's clear and undeniable areas of growth where they can get better. And they found ways to win both of those games. And they have been able to withstand, the offensive onslaught of two of the most lethal scorers in the game. Doc Rivers, when he was here, he used to talk about certain players are professional scorers. And
Mhm.
Kyrie Irving, professional scorer. Kevin Durant, absolute professional scorer. And yet the Celtics have made them look very mortal. They've made them look very, very mortal. And that's something I did not expect to see that in the series. That's been my biggest shock so far. Not that the Celtics are
Right.
up 2-zip. I expected that. But the fact that Kevin and Kyrie have looked incredibly slightly above average, because they're
Yeah.
not. There's
I
so
mean,
much more
Kyrie,
than that.
Kyrie in that fourth quarter in game one, he looked immortal for a stretch there. But you're right. To your point, as a duo, they've
Yeah.
definitely made them look like non-superheroes. So you
Mhm.
got to give him credit for that. And I can definitely see the Pistons comparisons. I think the Pistons, and you'll probably agree, were probably, this isn't a shot at the Celtics, but I think the Pistons were probably just overall tougher because they were just a really hard as hell, tough as hell team. Like
They were
older,
tougher,
better,
but
veterans and stuff.
right, right. The flip side to that is that they may have been, I think, just a little bit more physically tougher, in part because the game allowed you to be that way, and so they
That's a good
benefited from
point.
that.
Yeah,
But the other thing too is that the Celtics are just so much better offensively than that Detroit team was. I mean, that
yeah.
Detroit team struggled lots of nights to generate points, and you look at the Celtics. I mean, they should be giving you 110, 115 points pretty much every night. They've got that type of potent offense. Even when their core guys, aren't having great games, they still should be able to get some buckets. So,
I just mentioned veterans. We cannot go 38 minutes without mentioning and talking about Al Horford. So we got to give him his
man,
props, man. Man, last year Al Horford was treated like Theo Ratliff's contract, man. I mean, that
oh
dude
wow,
was out of the league practically in
I did
OKC.
not expect the Theo Ratliff reference. What?
Dude,
Not
I
well
mean,
done, Jimmy.
that's literally
I
how
thought you
I
were gonna say. I thought you were gonna say Tony Battie or something.
Nah, man. Tony at least got on the court. I mean, damn, they
Right,
weren't even. They were like, "Yo, Al, we'll see you. We'll see you never, man. Thanks for matching contracts." But
right.
man, and Brad Stevens deserves credit for pulling the trigger on that one. I mean, it feels like it was a no brainer, but it had to have exceeded everybody's expectations for what Al Horford could be contributing to this team. I mean, this guy is he's a mainstay in the starting lineup. What he does for you on the defensive end is unbelievable, and he's still putting in work on the offensive end. 16 points tonight, 3 for 6 from three. The guy entered the league was not a 3-point shooter. He adapted to the league over the years,
Hmm.
stretched out his game, and he's turned it into massive contract towards the end of his career that otherwise wouldn't have gotten if he didn't create that outside shot. So, I mean, you got to give him all the credit in the world. He is the stable force, I would say, for this team. He's not ever going to be the wildest guy on the court. He's going to just be the consistent, presence. And I think we're seeing that through 2 games.
Yeah, and he's benefited from a few things. I mean, first of all, they were very diligent in monitoring his health throughout the season so that he could be as fresh as possible for the playoffs. So there's that. He has that going for him. the scheduling gods have done him a major solid because again, they had that nice window of days off leading up to the playoffs, and he was dealing with some, I think he had like a sore back or something like that. So that extra time helped him. And once we started playing games, think about
Mhm.
this: 3 days between games 1 and 2. Nobody benefits more than that than Al. 3 days between next games 2 and 3, nobody's going to benefit more than that than Al. And so that gives you the opportunity to have your veteran player be as fresh as possible for
Right.
games that you absolutely feel you have to find a way to win, at a minimum compete in.
Right.
So Al is such an important part of what they're trying to do going forward. And give him credit, man. I mean, Al, he's taking a lot of crap.
Totally.
To,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Here,
in his
in Philly, and
yeah.
yeah, man, he's taking it, and he's credit to him, man. He's brushed it all off. A true pro, and I don't think you'll hear anybody complaining or criticizing anything that he's given this team right now. So
No, no,
yeah,
no, and
no, go
yeah,
on.
the cool thing about Al is that he is self-aware enough to know what he can and cannot do at this point in his career. Like, you're not going to see Al try to track somebody down with a chase down block. You're not going to see Al try to go ISO with a guy at the top of the key and beat him off the dribble. He's going to do what Al does. He's going to back his ass up, try to get that guy on the block and hit him with a little jump hook or hit him with a
Yep.
little fadeaway, doing the things that he knows he can do. And that's part of the beauty of what he's able to contribute now, because he's able to do those things at a much higher level, more consistently. And like I said before, he's benefiting from a schedule that's allowing him a little bit more recovery time between games. And that's huge. And that's why for the Celtics, you want to end this series as quick as possible because you've seen
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
a well rested Al Horford looks like. And you really want to get to the point where you can not only give him rest, but also get your guy Rob back in the mix, and have some time to just work him back into the mix and not have to necessarily play games. That's why you need to end this thing as quick as you can. 5, 6 games. This should not be a 7-game series.
Yeah, I mean, if they go into Brooklyn on Saturday and take care of business, I mean that's gonna put the kibosh on it for all intents and purposes. But one thing, Al, and really everyone on the Celtics team and everybody watching at home could benefit from over these next 2 days, along with some rest, is some calm.com, Sherrod. And,
Yes.
our favorite sponsor on the Garden Report is Calm. And if you guys are watching from home, it's 10:40 on the East Coast right now. Everyone's wired. Everyone's fired up. You need to sort of come down from it a little bit. Head on over to calm.com/garden. Get 40% off a Calm premium subscription. In that app that you'll end up downloading, you're going to get music, you're going to get meditation, you're going to get stories, sleep stories, you're going to get soundscapes. You want a little rain coming down, right? Rain hitting the roof. Maybe you grew up with a little rain hitting the roof of your childhood home, and that takes you back. Like those are the things that calm.com can give you and sort of get you back into that good headspace. And when you're talking about the Celtics right now, they feel like they're in a great headspace. I'm not saying that they're using the product, but I'm saying that everyone could probably benefit from it. So head on over to calm.com/garden. You'll get 40% off premium subscription. I got to read a couple of the fine print here so I don't screw anything up. But everything I just said is how I truly feel about Calm. I use it. I have the app. Everyone who's watched the show sees me fire up the app and tries to show it to you guys that nobody can actually see.
Right.
But we are partnering with Calm. They are the #1 mental wellness app, okay, to give you the tools that improve the way you feel, reduce stress and anxiety through guided meditations, improve focus with curated music tracks, and rest and recharge with Calm's imaginative sleep stories for children as well. Don't forget, you got kids at home, you can't get them to sleep, they're up all night, they're screaming their heads off. Toss on Calm, toss it on the speaker, a little Bluetooth action. Maybe they fall right to sleep and you can get some sleep for yourself. Um, what else here? There's even new daily movement sessions. You got to keep it moving. You got to stay active, Sherrod. You're a guy who's been covering the NBA for many, many years, and I know that you stay active in between games because you can't just sit around all day and all night. You don't want to end up, you don't end up glued to the chair. You got to stay active. Calm gets you
You
in
do
those
that.
things. So go to calm.com/garden. You get a special offer of 40% off the premium subscription, and new content is added every week. Over 100 million people around the world already use Calm to take care of their minds. It's ready to help you stress less, sleep more, and live a happier, healthier life. So that is calm.com/garden. And that is all I have to say about that. So thank you to Calm. They're a huge sponsor of ours. And guys, if you like our show, if you want to support us, the best way to do so is to help us out with some of our sponsors so that they can keep us coming back to do more shows like this that we enjoy doing. So
Absolutely.
that
And
being
don't forget the 40% discount, Jimmy.
40%, it's huge, man. I mean, dude,
It is
it,
huge. Off the premium subscriptions, that's huge.
I think, yeah. I mean, it's not a cheap little app. You know, you got to pay. You got to pay for the good apps out there, folks. Okay, you know, the free apps can only take you so far, and if you can get 40% off, you can buy you a few extra months there, and it's for your own good. It's for your health. Think of how much money you waste on stupid. This is for you. So that's that on Com. So thank you to Com, and thanks for everybody who's watching and who is already subscribed. And we have had a good amount of people subscribe because Com's been a good sponsor of ours for a while. That said, Sherrod, what have I what do you want to hit on? What have I missed out? Is there something that
I don't.
you being at the game that I couldn't really pick up on that maybe, I mean, I know you're there 3 hours early before every game minimum. So, this could be some things that I don't see. And Josue, I just heard from Josue. He's wrapping up the Kyrie Irving press conference. So he'll be jumping on momentarily. He'll be able to give us a good rundown of how that went and anybody else he was able to talk to. But until we get Josue on, maybe Sherrod's got something else on his mind.
Well, I think we glossed over Jalen, and I don't think we should. I think we really need to
You're
spend a
right.
little bit of
We
time
we
talking
we
with
we,
Jalen
we talked
because
about him and we got to go back to him for sure. And I know that
yeah,
when these guys come back on, we're going to rehash a lot of it. And I was expecting Jalen to be one of them, but let's get into it now.
yeah. I mean, I just think that Jalen for the longest time, and it's obvious. I mean, he's viewed as like the other good player on his team, and he's still learning and growing how to figure out when to take over, when to be in command, when to be that alpha. And this was a game where it was obvious. I mean, Tatum just didn't have it. Could not make shots. And Tatum, I give him a lot of credit for recognizing that in himself. There were a couple of times where he could have forced the action, but he kicked it out to a teammate. And there are a couple of times where that teammate was Jaylen Brown, who more than rose to the occasion. He had that little stretch where he had like 5 straight points. That was huge. That came shortly after Peyton Pritchard kind of gave them the lead with his long two. That is what they're going to need going forward. I mean, Jaylen Brown has become such a force for this team that when he's playing right, this team becomes extremely difficult to beat. And I thought he had a really good game at both ends of the floor, was very impactful, made a big shot after big shot in the fourth quarter when they needed it. And that, if you're Brooklyn, is a problem because you had a great game plan on how to just minimize, Tatum, but you let Brown kind of buck wild there down the stretch. And this is where you just wonder at what point will they look to bring Ben Simmons into the fold? You keep hearing about game 4. But if they get their ass waxed in game 3 and you decide to bring Ben Simmons back for game 4, what exactly are you trying to do at that point, Brooklyn?
Yeah.
I mean,
So Simmons can experience another L in his year.
Yeah.
L's.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. I mean, what? So you bring him back for game 4. Let's say you're down 3-0 and you lose game 4. You bring him back for one freaking game? Seriously?
Yeah.
So
The Simmons thing, I want to stick with Jalen for a minute. I know we'll get to Simmons because I do want to talk about that. I agree with a lot of what you said, Sherrod. But for Jalen Simmons, that's always been a nice little heated rivalry there, right? I mean, I'm not even gonna call it a rivalry. Jalen Brown's had his number, to be completely honest. But there's definitely some back and forth between the two out there in the court, and
it goes back to high school.
Okay.
When I went to Jalen's high school and spent some time with his high school coach and his AAU coach, and inside the trophy case, there's a trophy that they won when Jalen's team played Ben Simmons' team, and both of his coaches talked to me about how Jalen is pretty focused, but there was a different level of focus for that particular game because he knew that Ben Simmons was like a big deal in the eyes of many. And as Jalen in many ways is like Smart, where if he can find something to put on that shoulder to give him that extra chip to just basically go at your ass, he's going to use it. And that's exactly what happened when he played against Ben. And I don't think he necessarily thinks about that high school tournament every time he sees Ben Simmons, but there's still something there.
There's definitely, for sure.
Yeah. So,
that's not something you forget. That's how those things are born. And you're a competitor. You remember all the losses. You remember all the competitions that you had, one-on-ones, and those things they build up over time. So that's why it's so stunning to me that Simmons feels like he doesn't. I don't know if he wants to play. I feel like if you're a competitor and you're a world-class athlete and you have a chip on your shoulder and you're listening to all the naysayers, don't you want to go out there and prove them wrong? I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with it. And Steve Nash said today, it's up to Ben Simmons whenever he's ready to play. It's like, well, dude, now or never, man. Your team never needed you more. They traded James Harden for you for, essentially, and it just feels like you'd want to get out there. But when it comes to Jaylen Brown, and I said this earlier in the show, for me, I know what he's capable of. I know what he's capable of, talent-wise, offensively. He's one of the few players in this league that can kill you literally with a dunk and can step back and drain a 28-footer, 30-footer in your face. There are those players in the league, but they're few and far between. And Jaylen Brown is fully capable of doing both of those things on back-to-back possessions. And that's what makes him so dangerous, is that he's an athletic freak of nature. He can get down the court extremely quick. And we didn't give him enough credit in after game one for his fourth quarter performance and just getting the team in motion, sort of carrying them on the offensive end. I forget how many he scored in a row, but he had 8 or close to it. And then out of that last Durant miss, getting the ball, pushing it down the court, keeping the Nets on their heels and making the good pass. We all talk about Marcus Smart's pass, but Jaylen drove to the hoop and, found Marcus at the 3-point line. And that's when you started to get the Nets collectively just moving from, they looked like a rec team out there, just following the ball. Nobody had any idea what they were doing on the defensive end. And that all really started with Jaylen Brown. So he does do a lot of things. And one of the things I noticed after Tatum hit that buzzer beater under the rim there is everyone celebrating. Ime goes right over to Jaylen Brown. And that isn't to say that he wasn't happy for Tatum or for Marcus or whatever, but he went right over to Jaylen Brown, and I don't know what they said, but it was very obvious to me that he, wanted to acknowledge Jaylen Brown's contributions at the end of that game, down the stretch in that fourth quarter. So those are the little things that I think Brown does that sometimes go unnoticed. And we joke about not talking about Jaylen Brown on the show, and it is joking. We obviously understand how important he is to this team. But there are definitely points, I think, collectively, we get caught up in Tatum, and what he's doing offensively, and we get caught up in Marcus Smart's defense. And sometimes Jaylen Brown goes a little bit under the radar, I think, more than he should. So he definitely deserves credit for these last 2 wins here, for sure.
Yeah, I think he goes under the radar a lot. When you look at the fact that he's early, mid-20s, he's a guy that can go out there and get you 20, 25 points pretty much every night if given an opportunity. And yet he's often treated as if he's, maybe he can be a double-digit scorer. Maybe he can, be a starter for you. And it's just like, it's insane and ridiculous. But I give Jaylen a lot of credit. He uses that as motivation. He uses that as fire that fuels him to be, one of the better young players in the game. So he's just his impact is undeniable in this series. And it's one of the many problems that Brooklyn has that I don't think that there's a clear-cut solution that they can turn to, because the more attention you shift towards him, that means less attention on Tatum. And that is not a recipe for success if you're playing the Celtics.
Nope, not at all. And I think that's Josue Pavon's music. buddy.
Wow.
Oh, here we go.
There
Here we go.
he is.
Yeah, we in here. What up?
The little what you got? What's your
What-
backdrop?
what-
Wait, you
guys
on
missed
the
me?
court? Yeah, we missed
No,
you.
no,
Well,
we didn't.
well,
But
well,
Sherrod keeping it 100 like he usually does. All right.
I was being
No,
nice.
what-
I was
Appreciate
being
that.
nice, Josue. But yeah, we missed you. We're glad you could join us. I know that you
Let
were.
me ask you something, Jimmy, real
Oh,
quick.
you're asking me. Oh, you're already asking me
Let me
questions.
let me ask you
He's
something.
already running the show. Hold on. Let me put him in the host seat. Hold on. All right.
When
what
did you put
got?
that hard hat on? Because I
When I
know
put
your faith in the Celtics team wavered throughout that second half.
fourth quarter.
Or the
Fourth quarter. You know, I didn't come into the fourth quarter.
I put it on when they came to work. They didn't come to work until like midway through that third quarter, and then the hard hat started to come out.
You know when
Hard hat started
Jaylen
to
Brown was settling for jump shots over Patty Mills, you were screaming F-bombs. Don't lie.
Oh no.
Don't lie. But you know what?
Facts.
He switched
Facts,
up his
my
approach,
dog.
though.
Facts, my dog. Yo, the hard hat came on. The steel toe boots got strapped in. The lunch pail, I took it.
Oh, I think they're about to win this, guys. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm tossing the helmet on.
Now, Josue, now you were in for Kyrie, correct?
I was, yeah.
What was that
Speaking of
like?
not coming to work.
So
Oh
what
wow!
Kyrie,
Shots fired, Jimmy.
what Kyrie
shots
had
fired.
to say was all positive. It was all positivity, in my opinion.
About who?
He talked about Durant, I guess, getting to the free throw line. Like he tried to keep it as positive as he could, and that was he led with that. You know, when people asked about, oh, is there anything that you need to do to help him get the ball? He's like, well, he got to the free throw. Like he was just keeping it everything, just only keeping it positive. Whereas Durant was a little more realistic. Durant was more like, look, I can't rely on people trying to get me my shot. I got to get my own. And he was also asked, do you believe you need to drop 30 to 40 points to win? He was like, sometimes. It seemed like he wanted to flat out say yes, but he was just like, yeah, sometimes. And I'm like, in this series, I think that's crucial for the Nets.
They're going to need a 40 piece.
In all honesty, I thought this was going to be tonight, Sherrod. I really did. I mean, I would have put money. I'm not even a betting man, but I would have put money that he would have dropped anywhere between 35 and 40, and it just didn't happen. And give credit to the Celtics because Ime Udoka, man, he talked about it too. He said it felt like every time I touched the ball, I had 2 or 3 guys around me. And guys are physical, guys are hit, but he didn't complain, didn't say, wasn't talking about fouls because he'd be the last person to talk about fouls, right? I mean, he got all the free throws tonight.
He got 20 free throws.
I like that, right? I like that though. He gave all the credit to Ime. Also, another thing that Kyrie said, which I thought was interesting, was that he says that, and I quote, it might not be verbatim, but he said, Ime Udoka, yeah, right, the Josue version. Ime Udoka has the key to the treasure chest. He was on the coaching staff last year, so he's given this team some keys to the treasure chest, and I'll have to look over film and make our adjustments for Game 3. So he was just keeping it positive, man. And I swear, after like the 5th question, the guy just goes, "That's a wrap, guys. That's it. Like that's it. We got a clean presser here without frustrating Kyrie. So let's
That's
stop
because
it now.
they knew after the
Let's
5th or
stop it
6th
now.
question, somebody would ask about, hey, Kyrie, about those fans. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Good for
that
them.
was gonna be your question, man. Like, yo, you wish, yo, Kyrie, thoughts on being $50,000 less today than you were yesterday? That's what I probably would start off with. But
yeah, right.
It's probably good.
I don't think he's losing any sleep over 50,000 lighter in the pocket.
No, it's going to a good charity, I'm sure. So
Christmas time for NBA charity. That's what I'm talking.
Everybody wins in the end. It sounds like Kyrie may have went to com.com after the game, and based on some of those answers you're talking about.
Maybe he did. Right? Maybe he used our promo code. Who knows?
Hopefully. So what? You hear from anybody else after the game, Josue, or were you just there for Kyrie?
No, just Kyrie, and then Durant was right after him, and they kept it really positive, But it just seemed like they just. I mean, this may go without saying, but it feels like they just have this us against the world mentality. Whereas you look at a game like this, man, like all your role players stepped up, like in terms of the starting lineup. At least you got Dragic coming off the bench. Shit, he was leading all scorers at halftime. I mean, that's something you got to capitalize on that, right? I mean, he gave all the credit in the world to the Ime Udoka and to the defensive scheming and all, but I just feel like again they just have this attitude where like we're just gonna put this team on our back and we'll take those performances from our role players, but don't worry about that. We got it from here. Like I don't know, that's the vibe I got from it.
Well, I mean, the thing that is I think a little bit troubling for Brooklyn is that role players typically play better at home, and yet they've gotten some really big games out of the role players on the road.
Right.
I don't see those guys playing much better. Like the way Dragic is playing right now, this is about as good as he's going to be. In terms of scoring the ball, and being efficient. And I thought Claxton, I thought he had a come back to earth moment in this game compared to what he did in Game 1. I don't think he's that good. And game two, kind of, I felt very good about my assessment of his game after game two.
You know what it is,
Bruce
Sherrod?
Brown.
He's good.
What is
He's
it?
good when you forget about him. That's what it is. When you forget about him, you're like, oh, I forgot Claxton's out here. And he'll get those open.
But when you put him on a
dunks.
scouting report,
You
it's
know.
a different story.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Yeah,
true.
but Bruce Brown,
Scouting report is just hack him.
what's that?
Just hack those dudes, the big men down there.
Yeah, because
Jimmy's just yelling stuff.
they can't make free throws. They can't make free throws. Bruce Brown is good, man. I really like his game. He and Bruce did his job tonight. He did his job.
Yeah,
Tatum-
I think mini apology came for Sherrod because he thought Bruce Brown was trash after game one, but Bruce Brown came out. If not for Bruce Brown, this game's over at halftime. Bruce Brown was the only guy doing anything for them.
What's a mini apology?
It means I'm not going to actually fire
half of it.
I'm not going to actually fire. It's not worthy of it to that.
It's like it's a backhanded compliment. This it's like
which by the way,
was better. What?
No, go ahead. I was gonna say along those lines. You know what I'm about to say, but you know what Bobby's gonna come in hot about your Grant Williams take from game one. So because Grant Williams came to play tonight, so you know he's gonna have that ready.
Listen, we talked about all I needed Grant to do was make open shots. That's all I wanted. He did exactly what I wanted him to do.
Balled out. How about
big shots? Big shots from Pritch.
Good defense too, low key.
We'll give you the floor for a minute because me and Sherrod have been chopping it up for a good hour, and
I'm all over the place. Sorry.
Just no, it's all good. But just give us your overall thoughts on the Celtics tonight. Especially in that second half, sort of like maybe their response to the first half and being down 10. It felt like they came out with a little bit of a purpose maybe in that second half.
Yeah, I feel like they just responded. When it came down to grit and defense, they just wanted it more, in my opinion. That 17-point lead from the Nets that happened in a hurry, and the Celtics they didn't settle for jump shots, and I was really afraid they were going to because Jalen sort of gave me that vibe. Patty Mills. Yeah, Patty Mills on him. He's trying to shoot over him. You have Bruce Brown, who's probably a better defender, but he's trying to shoot over him. Take him to the rack. Show them, make it tougher for them. I felt like they were sort of just like, oh yeah, we're gonna come back, but we're gonna do a little. No, like take it from them, and that's exactly what they did in that fourth quarter. They took the game from them, and you saw Jalen go on that huge run. Man, like we talked so much about how he had that stretch of games where he was getting out to 12, 13, 14 points in the first half, and then hoping that would translate into the postseason. He's just this well-balanced attack, or in this instance, the fourth quarter takeover. I'm going to do my thing, and someone like Jason Tatum's giving him some of those assists down the stretch. Like that's just so big for him, man. Again, we talked about it before the series started. Like he wasn't here last year. He was hurt. The year before that, he was in the bubble. Like he hasn't had this playoff atmosphere in Boston for 2 years now, and obviously, 2019 wasn't a memorable run for the Celtics. Let's just put it that way. And it's just it's just another like sign of growth, man. Like the maturation of these guys, and which is why I wanted this series so badly. Like I want the Celtics to go down this route because it's just gonna pay in dividends down the road. You know what I mean? Like they already feel like they can beat anybody, and now it's just this one's close to home. This one's emotional, but they're here for it. They're dialed in. They're all focused, man. It's incredible, man. I haven't seen the Celtics team play this well like since I've been doing this job, man. This is I think this is that team, Sherrod. I mean,
you know who we haven't said anything about, and this is one of the few games where we could probably talk about him and actually not crap on him. Daniel Tice, freaking 15 points.
Yeah,
he made
Shame on us. Shame on us.
And he
gets the brownie.
So close to fouling out.
He gets the brownie. That's our bad. He gets the brownie.
He was so close to fouling out and I think flipping out as well. But everyone's just like, you got this, Tice. Just keep playing. Don't let the refs get to you. And he did that.
The funny part about Daniel is that he scores the first basket for the Celtics, right? Yeah, he scores. Seconds later, what does he do? Picks up a damn foul.
That
was a Daniel Tice experience right there.
That's his life with this team in a nutshell. I'm gonna give you something good, but don't get too comfortable with the goodies because I gotta go back and defend.
Yeah, he hand out the cookie jar.
I thought he did a good job of keeping the Nets honest offensively. They couldn't relax as much as they wanted to when he was on the floor because he made them pay. And the same thing with Al. I can tell you right now that both Al and Daniel are still low-key fired up about those comments that Bruce Brown made
Yeah,
Yeah,
before
I
the
think
series.
they are. I think
Because,
they are. Yeah.
I mean, look at the way that
F
those two
Bruce
guys have
Brown,
played.
man.
I don't know if they've had back-to-back games where they were both this impactful in terms of scoring the ball. And I don't think it's just a coincidence that Bruce Brown said what he did, and those
Right.
guys are out to prove Bruce wrong. And Daniel, he knows he's going to get 4 or 5 fouls, even no matter what. So at least you can do is get some damn buckets at the other end of the floor if you're going to pick all these damn fouls.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
But you know what else too, Sherrod? Bruce Brown going, what was that, 11-0 run or 9-0 run? Like that's just what they needed. They're like, we got to, not only do we have to take care of this team defensively, but we're going to take care of that guy. Like that's the one that's been yapping. And here he is doing it in front of his home crowd, even though they don't really like him right now. He's still from Dorchester. I mean, career playoff high. He was balling out, feeling himself, and the Celtics shut that down. They shut that right down. And man, you got to just give this team credit, just the way they defended Durant overall. Man, I was ready to take in a 35 to 40 point game from Durant, and I just never got that feeling throughout the game that it was going to happen. Man, you take away the free throws. Like how many points this guy? I mean, not all of them, but obviously, like him getting to the free throw line was huge for his his point total. But between him and Kyrie, man, like it's very impressive what Celtics are doing defensively, man. It really is.
Yeah,
on those two.
Yeah, those guys were 8 for 30 shooting tonight, and you can't have your two best players shoot that crappy from the field and have any shot at winning. You just can't. One of them can have a bad night, but they both can't be that ineffective.
Josue, when did you start to feel the tides turning a little bit? I mean, I felt personally like the Celtics were lucky to be down only 10 at halftime, but I still wasn't completely convinced that they were going to turn it around. But I thought that, they just came out, and you said it, Josue, they just came out and they just kind of outworked them in the second half. But was there a moment, I mean, you guys are both there tonight, was there a moment where you could kind of feel the momentum shifting, or that the Nets were almost kind of playing, I don't want to say scared, but they were just kind of playing like
they kind of folded. They kind of folded a bit. Yeah. I feel like once it became like a 2-possession game, I mean, when Jalen was on his run, I actually want to say, ironically enough, it was the three-pointer because we went to the rack back-to-back possessions, and then he hit that big three, and I was like, I don't see Brooklyn coming back from this. But I mean, they made it. I thought the last couple of minutes, I was like, we saw Kyrie hit back-to-back threes last game. That's all they needed, but that's the reason why the Celtics kept fighting till the end, man. To the very end, they kept playing defense, and that was all she wrote.
Yep. That was all she wrote. Just 16 assists for the Nets tonight. I mean, the shots just were not falling, and you could see the Celtics kind of in that second half, sort of willed their way, and just like Sherrod said, snatched their souls in that
snatched their soul in the fourth.
Yes,
there.
Well put.
And so and Josue, we talked about it a little bit, but Tatum tonight, slow start. Offensively, didn't even hit his field goal until the end of that second quarter there, but finished the first half strong. And then that fourth quarter, tell me if you agree or disagree. I just thought that three-pointer that he hit late in that fourth quarter, that kind of was the dagger there. I thought that was just one of those like big boy shots that sort of takes you from an all-star to a superstar. Like it's those types of shots in those moments that sort of like that's the difference sort of thing.
It was almost a little Kevin Durant-ish, for being honest, right? It was like that closer shot. Like this is it.
Like torch situation there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you on that, Jimmy. I'm with you on that, and I'm also I understand why Tatum is sort of just feeling the other team. The Brooklyn's defense in that first quarter, first half. I like his approach right now because he knows that all four of those that starting lineup, they can get you buckets right now. He's got confidence in these guys, as high as I've ever seen him. When you think about it, and he should. Look, Tice came out with some timely buckets down the stretch. What was that? Like that 5-footer that he's like, it's clutch every single time. He takes a jump shot, and you're almost like, is that gonna go in? You're like, oh yeah, it's Tice, so he can make those, right? Obviously, you got Jalen, Marcus got going a bit. I just think, again, the defense is sort of triggering this too, right? I almost feel like Tatum is just like knows when to pick his spots when they come up with those big stops, and all of it has just been, even when they're down by 10, you never get the sense that they're gonna lose, man. Like I guess throughout that run, right, when the Celtics were losing by 15, 17 points, I'm just thinking how much time do they have, because all the fouls, guys were getting in foul trouble. In that third quarter, they were in the penalty. It felt like forever, but they had to survive that. They just had to survive that punch, and they went into the fourth quarter just with a whole different mindset, man. They almost held the Nets to 10 points in that fourth quarter alone. I mean, yeah, towards the end, those shots, once the game felt like it was already decided, they must have scored 3 or 4 more points. But man, they held them to 6 points, in the fourth quarter. It's incredible, unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's the best defense in the NBA. This is they're taking things to another level, and they're doing this without Rob. Unreal.
The meat of that fourth quarter, the Nets could not buy a basket. I think they had 4 points over a 9-minute stretch, and it was just. I mean, you guys were there. Was it just mayhem in there? Is it one of the loudest games that you've heard? It sounded loud.
That was the loudest
on TV.
That was the loudest it got. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The fans brought it tonight. Would you say? Were they on Kyrie tonight?
Oh yeah.
They were on him, but it was pretty standard. I mean, I didn't feel it was excessive. I didn't feel that it was dialed back. It seemed like pretty much how they go at him. They'll touch the ball and they'll boo.
The
Kyrie's sucks chance began 18 seconds in.
It's probably what it was.
That one I didn't see that one coming. It was like they had it all agreed. Everyone got an email today, yesterday. It was 18 seconds to the game, we're doing a chant. All right, cool.
Right.
You didn't get that email that I sent out?
No. Oh, is that you, Jimmy?
I gotta get you on the list. My bad. Let me get you. Josue, the question that I gotta ask you, and that I asked Sherrod, is it over? Is the series over at 2-0?
No, it's not over. It's not over. Okay. I believe in that old cliche. Well, at least in this example, it's not over until you win on the road. So something's got to do that. Something's got to do that.
Exactly what I think. I'm going to predict that Bobby has a different answer, but I'm leaning towards.
The pendulum. The pendulum's swinging right now, Bobby. Man, he's going to go way to the other side. But yeah, he's probably going to. I just hope he doesn't say it's a sweep, because that's aggressive.
Yeah, and
I don't feel that. I don't feel that at all.
Brooklyn's making another trip to Boston, I think.
So
and that's okay.
Yeah, but and that being said, Brooklyn needs to fix a lot of things on both ends of the court, and I'm not sure Steve Nash has the basketball brain to do it. He's been talk about being outmatched through 2 games. I mean, Steve Nash hasn't done one single notable good thing on this year. I mean, he had a boneheaded review tonight that wasted their review and wasted.
That was a bad idea.
That seems like he just.
What was up with that? It was like the whole team just controlled him on that one. I couldn't believe everyone started going like this. You're just like, okay, guys, you're right. It's where's your assistant coaches?
It was a desperation type move.
I'm starting to feel like like Ime was the guy with the green book of plays in The Waterboy, right? The assistant coach that has all he had the keys to everything, and now that he's gone, Steve Nash is just fuck. Of course I'm playing Ime in the Celtics. He's got all my tricks in his damn pocket. I don't know.
Yeah, they're actually all Ime's plays to begin with. Steve Nash didn't even have any.
Coach, those are my plays. I swear, it's like that.
I didn't think Nash was that bad in the first half. At the start of the game, I thought he had a great plan on how to try to minimize Tatum, and I thought for the most part they were able to do that. A lot of what they were doing to Tatum was what the Celtics had did to Game 1 to Durant, just constantly having bodies in his face, forcing him to, frankly, be uncomfortable when he's trying to score and not allow him to do that. And then Steve, that was it.
I know this guy. I know this guy over here.
Oh, look who's making his way in. Okay, he's
glad he could join us.
This guy just rolls in whenever the hell he wants. What does he think he is?
Yeah, set up in a few minutes. Go ahead, Sherrod.
Yes. No, Steve Nash had a good start. I thought he had a good start, but again, as the game evolved, he didn't. And the end result was pretty much what I've been saying for the longest time. I just don't think Steve's a good coach. I don't. And good coaches figure out a way, not necessarily to win, but at least put your imprint on what your team does. What's their identity? What is Brooklyn's identity? Yeah. And what does he fit into that? And the answer is he doesn't. It's like he's the person that they brought in to babysit the team. And as the babysitter, we're going to pay you to babysit, but don't you make any real decisions because this is not your home and they're not your responsibility. So you're just a babysitter, and that shouldn't be your role as a head coach.
No,
You're more than that,
right?
But that's what it feels like.
It does.
That's funny, man. Sherrod, that's exactly what my co-host Joel on College History Podcast was saying. Like, man, like Ime knows this guy's like secrets, and he's gonna be really Nat's gonna be put on the spot here. It's like, what do you got? What do you got? You know, like this is obviously a huge matchup full of stars, and the defensive player of the year is in the series. Like a first round matchup you rarely see in the NBA, but look at the coaching matchup. It's just like it's interesting. Even all the way to the coaching matchup is interesting because like he was coaching those guys last year, but also Steve Nash hasn't been coaching in the league that long. Like you're going to be put on the spot here, and I think we're starting to see that a bit, especially in Game 2, and especially after you hear comments from Kyrie talking about keys to the treasure chest. It's like, well wait a minute, like doesn't Steve Nash have the treasure chest though? Like, don't you got nothing else in that bag? Like, I don't know, man. I thought that was an interesting take from Kyrie to drop that.
That is interesting considering
that was a nice shot, dude. It was a shot, is what it was.
Because Kyrie always has
that too.
That's a LeBron James playbook.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you. I thought I was overlooking things. I'm like, that's dead on. Yes. I'm like, wait a minute. Like,
why can't we have somebody with the keys to the treasure chest? Why can't we get a coach who's got the keys to the treasure chest?
Right.
It's just like because they paying you that max contract and they're paying that dude the max contract, and you're just putting another dude for a max contract. Can't have the keys. He's looking to get in room.
Kyrie basically is saying that Steve Nash is getting cucked by Ime is what he's saying. That's essentially what he's saying right there. So just so it's clear to everybody, that's exactly what Kyrie is saying. That's right out of the LeBron James playbook.
And I can hear John laughing right
LeBron
now.
James.
Comment.
Bobby, you know you're on right now? I don't know if you do know you're on.
No, Bobby, you don't have to.
We're gonna give him a second.
No, you're good, man.
Bobby, we're gonna.
Oh, is that you? Is that Sherrod? That's Sherrod. Oh, damn it! It is Sherrod.
We can't hear you, Bobby. We can't hear you yet. Why don't you Not yet. All right, I'm gonna let you go for a second. You can figure out the audio issues that you may or may not be having. Josue.
What up?
We mentioned Marcus Smart briefly. You haven't got a chance to comment on his Defensive Player of the Year award and his performance tonight. Sherrod said that it was, I think he said it was Marcus Smart's best performance of his career tonight. I
think it is. I think it is. When you look at the player that he was matched with for the most part tonight, you look at the impact that Kyrie did not make, and you look at the impact that Marcus did make. It's up there. I mean, Kyrie had freaking 10 points, and I would say at least 6 of those were someone other than Marcus Smart. And so for Kyrie to be on the floor for like 40-some-odd minutes and have just 10 points with Marcus doing a lot of the defense on him, come on.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he pulled up in the robe, Sherrod.
As he should.
Yeah, so that was what I saw that. So Marcus Smart pulled up in a Defensive Player of the Year robe today. Is that correct?
I love it. Love it.
Just get Josue's thoughts, and then we'll bring Bobby in to get his overall thoughts on the game tonight. But I want to just wrap up quickly on Josue's thoughts on Marcus here.
Man, it's just well deserved, man. Like a few weeks ago, John looked at me like I was crazy when I called it highway robbery if Marcus Smart didn't win this award. And I still stand by that statement, man. And it's not just about the fact that he's a guard. It's cool that, it's been that long since, the last person was Gary Payne and the whole thing with Gary surprising him. I love that. I really do. And the people, some of the organization there, that was really cool. But, I just thought it was just so deserving, man. And you look at the votes and, it was relatively close, but not really, and I think this is Marcus Smart just puts a bow on the best season of his career. I think what's more impressive about it, most impressive about it, is the fact that he had to evolve as a point guard, learn how to master that role while continuing to dominate on the other end. Like that's not easy to do. Never mind the 500 record, never mind the narrative, never mind the trade this guy. This guy can't be your point guard. Hearing that over and over again, you know what I mean? He's just stuck with it, stayed focused. He had that experience with Ime, with Team USA and everything, so obviously that helped. And I just think between him and Ime, man, they just held that ground, and now everyone's starting to he's getting his flowers, getting his recognition on the national stage, and it's just so deserving of for Marcus and everything he's been through and what he means to this city and this organization, man. It's incredible, man. And all of this is going to be a perfect combination of things for this team to make this huge, deep playoff run that I think they're capable of doing right now. Man. It's just it's perfect. It couldn't the timing couldn't be any perfect right now for what Marcus is doing with this team.
And the timing could not be any perfect to get Bobby Manning on the show. Bobby, thank you for gracing us with your presence. Can we still not hear you? I can't.
We still can't hear him.
Unbelievable.
Bobby, just come sit next to me. Just come
you
sit
gotta
next
do
to
a
me.
sound check, my man. You gotta figure out the microphone.
Come on, bro.
I don't know what's going on. I can
We're
only
gonna
do
share
so
this.
many. I can only lay up so
bring
many openings for Bobby, and then him just go mute on me like that. I don't think I have any left.
They were all great too, man. You teed them up real nice.
I tee him up like over and over, and this is how he repays me with freaking. He's it's almost like he's on a Zoom call with Grant Williams or something. He can't get the question out, but we'll get him in here as soon as we can.
Damn, you had to go there, Jimmy. Damn.
Yeah, that's just those things for Bobby. Man.
You know he's sensitive about that, man.
No, Bobby's my guy. I love Bobby.
It's not always when you're on Zoom. It's not always easy to get your question.
Hey,
that
sucks.
That sucks.
It's mayhem, and I think it was more of a connection issue than a mute issue. But that's in the past. We shouldn't bring that up. Shame on you, Josue, for bringing that up. So
that was you. I think what made up for it though was the other time when he said his name. What did he say? Oh, so Bobby, you got a question? I was like, Bobby like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, okay. So Josue, I agree with a lot of what you said about Marcus. I mean, obviously in Sherrod,
you wanted him out of here too, Jimmy. You was leading the charge. No, that wasn't you.
No, it wasn't me. But I did admit on the show earlier that I think like a lot of people, somewhat skeptical of the extension at the time, just because I wasn't sure where the Celtics were heading. I mean, there was a lot of question marks at the way the season just ended for them. It was extremely disappointing. I thought the franchise was at one of its lowest points since before Garnett came to town. And I was just super low on everything they were doing, to be quite frank. So it probably didn't even matter who they ended up probably going to be down on it. But
exactly. No. I'm so happy you said that because that's what drove me crazy. Because for all the Marcus Smart, anti-Marcus Smart people out there, no one could give me one solid response. Get him out of here. Trade him. Okay. For who? I don't know. Just trade him. But he can't be your point guard. Okay. So who's gonna be the point guard of this team? I don't know, but just get him out of here. I'm like, can he get a shot? Did he not deserve a shot at it? Like one full season at it. Like that's all. That was my argument all season long. Just give him a shot. We'll reassess at the end of the season, and we didn't have to wait that long.
But but it's easy to say that now. But you don't just have seasons to throw away and just give him a shot. You've got Tatum and Brown here. You're trying to win. You're trying to build a culture.
Yeah, but Jimmy, it's not like Marcus Smart's it's not like he's a sophomore or a third-year player, man. It's like
you're asking him to do
something.
I'll
put my money on that dude. Like, why not? Like, I didn't get it.
You were asking him to do something that he had never done before, and to the naysayers' credit, it did start off pretty tough. I think we can all agree that this is an unprecedented turnaround in a season that none of us saw coming in December. I will at least give people that credit. But to all the supporters, you were proved right because Marcus Smart is now playing like a star point guard. He's thinking like one. He's certainly defending like one, the best one, we can say.
As the lights brighten
here. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can bring Bobby in again and see, fingers crossed, that we can hear him.
Should be good now.
Should be good now, he says, folks. We got him. Bobby. Okay. Bobby Manning, right. Everybody.
Let's do that.
Looking good as usual. You guys, I'd ask you to stand up and spin, but I'll save us all. But you get the playoff. Yeah, you get the playoff swag going tonight. You learn from Sherrod. Sherrod's been doing it for a while, but it's good to see you guys following.
What you think? We're gonna rock a hoodie in the playoffs? Come on, Jimmy.
No, the playoffs. You better not. We'll have to rip that press pass from you guys. But Bobby, welcome.
Never once did I wear a hoodie at a game. By the way, just saying.
Bobby, how are you feeling right now, man? What's going through your beautiful mind?
I'm feeling this series. You've really just demoralized the Nets here is what you've done. I said in the third quarter when Brooklyn was up by 17 in a game like this, they take in the position that the Celtics were in game one. You don't lose this or your series is done. I mean, you are in perfect position. You've gotten all of these role player. You've defended probably at the level that you possibly can. So you have to get a win. And they don't. In fact, they lose pretty handily in the fourth quarter there. Kevin Durant looks exhausted. That third quarter from him was uncharacteristic in ways that really make you wonder if these 40-minute games are starting.
Oh, he's getting better.
He's got a long string of them now.
Bobby.
Worry about Kyrie. Certainly fell off in a game like this. The role guys, they dwindled late. And again, it looks like the Celtics have the personnel to really defend and make life difficult for them. So at this point, I don't know how they win a game. Like, that might sound strong, but I just don't think they have the personnel around the two stars to pull out a win at this point.
The pendulum
it was going to be any game. It was this one.
So, I mean, you answered the question before I even asked it. And I asked Sherrod and Josue already if the series was over. Your answer to that, Bobby? Your answer is that it's over.
Yeah,
okay.
It's over.
I said for the record, just so Bob, you'll watch the thing. I said it's not over until the other team wins. The visiting team wins at their, on the road. And I said, but watch for Bobby to say it's going to be a sweep, and there it is. But who knows? We'll see. I'd be impressed.
Yeah, I know.
Very impressed if they sweep this team.
And coming in for Ben Simmons, you definitely keep an eye on that.
I can't tell if Bobby's talking, getting cut off, or if he's not. Bob, your internet connection is a little spotty. I don't know if you can get closer to.
It got a little better, but.
Is there like a gigantic router that you can sit next to over there? I don't know, but you're in and out, so I don't know if
I'm on my phone now. The computer wasn't working, so we're down to the last legs here.
Okay, now it's better.
Okay, you're on your phone.
You're good now. You're better.
Picture's fine. It's just the audio's in and out. Okay. So, Bobby, I think as most people would have expected, the series is over. Brooklyn shouldn't even.
What gives you confidence in Brooklyn, Jimmy? What are they doing well?
I wouldn't say I'm confident in Brooklyn. I'm just not at the point where I'm going to count them out completely. I mean, because they do have Durant, because they do have Kyrie, and those guys obviously have had a very tough time. And credit to the Celtics. I mean, they're making it extremely difficult for Durant. And we've gotten it. We've talked at length about just their approach to Durant, Bobby. But the physicality against Durant seems to really be bothering him. Have you sort of picked up something similar there?
Who's that, Durant?
Yeah, the way they're defending him.
Definitely. I mean, I've never seen a team bother him, at least this season, or even really his whole tenure here, like the Celtics have. They're showing they're getting in his airspace, and he may even talked about they're willing to certainly have here tons of foul trouble from Horford fouls out, but you see them just getting right inside his body spot. You're not going to want to get under him because they are in and they're and you saw a few toughs. I know Horford picked up his fifth, getting aggressive there, trying to stop from him. White picked up a third in the first half, getting right up in him. But there's a lot more where they come up with those plays. There's a great string of stops to start the third quarter that swung this game around, frankly, by just being super aggressive on that end. And you're starting to see this really start to find themselves without Rob. It took a little while, but guys are in the right spots now. They found the right rotation. It's getting back to being that super aggressive, really be offensively.
Even without Rob,
he just got dropped. Bobby's working through some technical difficulties, but we trust that he will have it figured out at some point.
Prayers up. I know.
Josue, we talked about Tatum. We talked about Smart. Another guy that we always get shit on for not talking about enough, but deserves credit for game one, deserves credit for game two. Jaylen Brown is continuing his, sort of hot streak into the playoffs here and really becoming a force for these guys. He's almost like, it's back to the Tatum and Brown, show, I guess, if you will. And I wasn't in the locker room, so I know you. I think Bobby was, and maybe he can speak to what the guys had to say about maybe.
Oh Brown. Yeah, you see Jaylen? I was in Brooklyn.
Yeah, Bobby.
Yeah, Jaylen talked. I love what Jaylen said about the collective effort here. He gave a lot of credit to Grant.
Man, what a game!
He was amazing, and he thought he was the one who really turned this game around with his third quarter efforts there. Loved what Pritchard did, certainly. Pritchard had the go-ahead shot there. Big shooting for the whole fourth quarter from Pritchard. That's becoming like his spot in these games. What did I call him? The gentleman in the fourth earlier this season. He's starting to take that on again. So you're really seeing everybody just fit in their roles. I love what Jalen said. It's not me and Jason. It's not me, Jason, and Smart. It's the Celtics. And 1 through 8 at this point, everybody has their role, knows where they're supposed to be on defense, knows how to connect with each other on the offensive end. And I said this on the group thread, Jimmy. Think of the things that they've overcome now in the last couple of weeks here. Major injury, blowing a massive lead in game 1, going down by 17 in this game. All 3 of those things would have killed this team early this year. Those were the 3 things that killed this team. Going down by a ton, blowing huge leads, and injuries and COVID, all those excuses. Well, now they've just soared past all these things. The resolve of this team, it just knows no bounds. Like they overcome everything at this point. And it's amazing because they couldn't overcome anything at the start of the year. It's absolutely insane how everything just flipped on its head midway through this year. And it's continuing even through more turmoil.
And it's incredible when you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference and the other teams that are sort of looking a little flimsy, at times. And you're like, man, the Celtics, you give them this matchup in the first round that has everything you can want in the series, and they're just checking all the boxes right now of what a team's supposed to be like in terms of not just relying on 2 guys, not just relying on a few defenders to lock things down. No, everyone is doing their part, and it's a short rotation. Ime's only playing 3 guys off the bench, but everyone's going in there with the same mindset, with the same attitude, and the same approach.
The bench was so great today.
The defense, in my opinion, man, there were some points in that fourth quarter I was just like, are they folding on the Celtics right now? Like, I honestly got that impression.
Ime didn't want to get away from his bench.
Durant just looked like he was just spent. And then Kyrie was trying to do things, and getting to the free throw line was like the thing he was leaning on the most in that fourth quarter. And it just wasn't enough because he couldn't convert buckets. He couldn't convert field goals, and Marcus Smart all over Kyrie. It's like he remembered, or someone reminded him, hey, you only have 1 foul. Oh, all right, cool. And then he picked up 2 real quick. But it was like he just made life difficult for Kyrie again. And Kyrie barely scored double digits for that, because of that. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and Ime didn't want to get away from that bench, just to mention those guys again. Pritchard stays in there till about 4 minutes to go. Grant closes the game. Those guys became so vital. I even felt like Derek White had a few moments, but foul trouble ultimately played his night there. But you're getting contributions deep on this roster right now. You include Horford in that, who had another really strong first half. Those 3s back-to-back held them in the game there. I'd classify him among the role guys that are really stepping up in this series. And even on a night where Dragic goes off, 7 of his first 10, Drummond's hitting Horford hard inside and on the offensive boards. Bruce Brown got off to this massive start, scores the first 9 points, and ended up having a big game overall. It still felt like the Celtics had the better role guys, unbelievably, after all of that. This was Brooklyn's best punch, I felt like. You got everything. You got all the defense you needed, and you build a 17-point lead. You can't lose that game if you're the Nets. And they did in pretty catastrophic fashion. And I don't know if you were on Steve Nash Josue. We were both reading the quotes, but it didn't look like he had answers.
Yeah.
So again, I just don't know what the response is for Brooklyn. More Durant? They're gonna just tell him to do even more? Because it looks like he's exhausted himself by what he's done so far.
That's what it sounded like in that presser, man. I mean, look, going into this one, I expected them to take a lot of 3s, and they somewhat did. I mean, in comparison to what they did in game 1. And those shots were falling for Seth Curry. They were falling for Bruce Brown. They were
hitting tough shots
guys off the bench.
on.
Patty Mills, Dragic, both hit 1. And I don't see Durant saying like, okay, let's keep giving those guys more shots. Like, I just don't see that. Like, that's not going to be the game plan. It's going to be, we'll take what we can get from you guys, but like, we got it from here. And I think they're going to rely on home court, and they're going to rely on just trying to fight back and obviously implementing those guys too and getting their open looks. But at the same time, when it comes down to it, though, Durant's going to do his. He's going to do his thing. I mean, he was 4 for 17. Kyrie 4 13.
He's shooting 31% in the series, Josue.
Kyrie's not shooting much better, man. I mean,
it's unreal. You can dream of doing a better job on Durant. It's every time he's going into the paint, he gets swallowed up. It just the ocean envelops him.
You said it earlier, man. I don't think I've seen a team defend Durant this way in a series. I mean, I know it's only been 2 games, but so far it's been I'm really impressed.
They're
They
making
were
him
so
extremely.
keyed in.
Golden State was yeah, I don't know. It's just like I'm
Making
trying to
him
think of
work.
like other times. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
I mean they're making him work for everything. He's getting. It looks to be extremely frustrated out there, just disinterested almost to the point of he's almost like throwing up his hands, like what else can I do? They're not giving me an inch right now, and when they do, I'm getting bodied, I'm getting hit, I'm working for every little inch I can get here on the court, and it's probably tiring him out too. And the Celtics basically full-time job out there is to stop Durant and Kyrie. Now we just talked about Durant, but Kyrie tonight was even worse. I mean, he was literally non-existent in that fourth quarter. I'm surprised because I just thought the way he showed out in game one with everything that was going on. I mean, he was unconscious out there at points in that fourth quarter, almost single-handedly won the game for Brooklyn, and just didn't have it tonight. Just didn't even really do one memorable thing that I can't think of one thing he did in the fourth quarter, to be completely honest. I mean, was that the vibe you guys, Bobby and Josue, is that what you kind of, what did you see in there in that fourth quarter with him? Was that something they were doing? Was that a Marcus Smart thing? Was that just a Kyrie
I think Mark
engaged?
Yeah, I think Marcus had a lot to do with that. But there was other guys too. I mean, the switching. I mean, shit. Even Al got a stop on him at one point, right?
Good traps.
They try to put him on an island, and Al's like, "Come on, man! Like I've been here before. It's been done, and he got to stop. It just seemed like that's Celtics basketball right now. You could switch off anybody, and it doesn't even matter because everyone is just gonna get that stop, I guess. But yeah, I thought he was rattled. And then when it comes to Durant, man, it was like he couldn't take more than 2 steps without having to pass the ball up and try to get it back, and he just looked uncomfortable.
Yeah, there was a really good sequence. I think it was in the third quarter where Grant stopped them twice in a row. They were just starting to get back within single digits there after halftime, and that's essentially what got them back, like right within 2 to 4 points there with those string of stops on Kyrie. They trapped timely. It always felt like a guy was coming right in with the double at the last possible minute once he touched the paint. And then on the perimeter, as Josue talked about there, was smart. It was guys being able to keep their men in front of them one-on-one. I think what's key to the series and what ended up being a great game plan on Ime's part was that they're not over-doubling. They're not giving guys open looks elsewhere. They really want to seal up the role players and be attentive to the stars, put enough pressure on them. And what that's basically boiled down to is shuffling these guys into some drop coverage, giving them no room to operate in the paint. If you want to take jumpers one-on-one, we'll contest them one-on-one. We'll hold our ground individually as defenders here, but we're not just going to double on the three-point line and let you dump it off to the big man or to your shooters here. You're going to hold your ground one-on-one as defenders is basically what the Celtics said here, and they've done that. And then, if a guy gets into the paint, Horford will rotate in. Tice was, doing some good drop coverage in this game. I thought it's just a very amorphous defense, and guys are able to help each other out if they get into some trouble. And again, it's the same principle as Rob. Cut out the paint entirely. How many easy paint looks? I know they got some early, but in the second half, the Nets weren't getting to the rim. They might have got some free throws there, but mostly they were getting swallowed and turning the ball over.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the game plan, Sherrod, is just make it as difficult as possible, put the clamps on them, as this astute commenter noted in the comment section here. And if you are watching at home, thanks for joining us. You're on the YouTube channel here. We have multiple YouTube channels going. If you can't watch us live, all these are recorded and they can be seen on our CLNS YouTube channel, youtube.com/Celtics, all access on CLNS. That is our Celtics only channel. For those of you who are watching on the main channel, we also have a Celtics channel. We've got a channel for every major Boston sports team. You can also listen to our podcast at all major podcasting outlets that you use, whether it's Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff. So thanks everybody for checking us out. Sherrod, we touched upon this briefly, and I did get your strong opinion on this, but I want to. It was earlier in the show, and I want to bring in Bobby here on the convo. But I'll start with you again, Sherrod. According to Bobby, there's really nothing else the Nets can do at this point. But there is a break in case of emergency button still available, and that is in the form of Ben Simmons. And Sherrod, I'll start with you. I'd like to get your rehash your take on this one and set it up for Bobby.
Well, I think they're coming close to having to crack that open because they clearly need something roster-wise to get over the hump. I mean, their role players had a great game too, and that ideally should be enough for them to win, and it wasn't. So there's some soul searching that they've got to do between now and Game 3, specifically to find their soul because the Celtics snatched it, and the Celtics are holding it. They got problems. Brooklyn has real problems, and I'm not convinced that Ben Simmons is the solution. Far from convinced. Your first game of the season is going to be like Game 3 or 4 of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
That's not ideal.
When they're losing, yeah,
It's
exactly.
not ideal. It's not ideal, but at the same time, and it's going to create more.
They have no
issues
choice.
offensively. Yeah, exactly. They have no choice, and it's going to might create some issues on the offensive end, certainly. But if Ben Simmons' one objective is to treat Jason Tatum like the Celtics are treating Kevin Durant, well, it might be worth it for them to say, "Hey, get the hell out there. You know, you're good now. Like everyone's checked you out and you're good to go." If that is the case, and it's just up to him, then I think he should get his ass out there and play basketball and see if he can have a positive effect on this Nets team.
Nash said something interesting today in terms of we want him to feel comfortable going out there. Like we want him to feel like he's ready to go. So I almost wonder if they're waiting on him. I'm sure the Nets, are ready to get him out there and get the benefits of having him on the court. It's just they need to come to terms with him. I'm sure his camp, just the overall group here in terms of where he's at health-wise or whatever else is going on. It's been a puzzling process throughout. Nash continues to push back on the notion that he's going to play in the timeline that Woj put out there. So it's all a mystery still. Again, I'd be surprised if we see him in this series. I just don't think it's a good formula for him getting his feet under him the first time after the playoff collapse, the year off, and the injury here. Like the triple threat of all that. Now, and I guess it's a quadruple threat saying, save us. Come in here and turn the series around. Like that's just a lot. And, I don't know what their plan's going to be if they lose this series in terms of who's back, who's not, what they're doing into the future. But at some point, they might just say, is this how we want this future piece of ours who's going to be here for years to come, getting his feet wet here? In this series, with all this physicality, with, of course, the Garden crowd, the way they've gone on Kyrie, they'll get on Simmons too. Like, it's just so many moving parts, not to mention the fact that they're now down 0-2. If you're down 0-3 going into Game 4, there's no chance he plays in this series, in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's definitely a risk, but it's also a risk either way. It's a risk either way. I mean, especially if they go down 3-0, you almost weigh, well, what do we have to lose? Let's play him against. What's the point almost, because like you guys said, I mean, is it really gonna change a whole lot? Bringing a guy in a year later, has never played with anybody, and you're putting him in a must-win situation, literally must-win. So there's some questions there. It's unfortunate that it even got to this point. I thought when the Nets made that trade, I immediately said, okay, wow, the Sixers just got a lot better and the Nets just got a lot better because they both got players that theoretically
it seemed like it.
We're going to slide right in and do their thing. Now the Sixers are up 3-0, so they're sitting pretty on Toronto tonight. They won in overtime. They're going to go for the sweep on Saturday after. They might be in the second round before the Celtics even tip off.
Get the Brooklyn.
Game 3. Yeah, exactly. So that series looks like it's all but over in Toronto. And then right now we've got the Bulls that are up 7 on the Bucks heading into the fourth quarter. I guess Embiid hit the game winner as well for the Sixers tonight. So I missed that, but that'll be a good one to watch back. But it feels like the Sixers are in control. This Bulls-Bucks series has been a lot closer than I anticipated it being.
It's
the
been
Bulls,
competitive.
Yeah, competitive is a good word. The Bulls are definitely showing some life, and that's a team. If you're the Bulls, you have to have some pride because the Bucks chose to play you. They wanted to play you. They couldn't wait to play you. They couldn't wait to lose and play you. So I think there's a pride factor there. And Chicago is, they've got some players on that team led by DeRozan that they've got a lot to play for. So they're not going to go down without a fight.
Here's a question, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Do you feel good? Do you feel better about choosing this series and playing out the end of the year now that you've shown that you're the better team here effectively through 2 games? It's been tough, but maybe there's some benefits to going through some of this turmoil early in the series and coming out on top as it looks like they might here, rather than, I guess, people were in my mentions tonight looking for an apology cam saying, oh, Philly's going to blow through Toronto. You should have went and gotten them. Who knows how that goes? I know Scotty Barnes got hurt too, but I guess it looked like Toronto ended up being the easier path. Is there any regret, or do you feel good about choosing the Nets in the end?
Well, listen, you're up 2-0 against the Nets, and you have a higher seed. So in that sense, you have to feel good about that. Now, I do think it is a harder matchup. So if you go 6 against the Nets, but every game is a war, and you're down to the wire, and you need to have these crazy comebacks, and you're in a physical matchup, then yeah, that might take a lot out of you for that second rounder against the Bucks if the Bucks do get by the Bulls, which I still think they will. The good news, or what you have to hope for, is that the Bucks just don't go 4-0 against Chicago, because that's my biggest fear, is that the Bucks would cruise through Chicago and you'd go 6 against Brooklyn, you'd get beat up, and then you'd play a Bucks team that's on 10 days rest and ready to go. So if you can avoid that situation, I'm okay with the Nets. I do think there is something to be said about being tested early on in the playoffs against a team like the Nets that many thought were better than the Celtics, or were favored really to start that series. I know it flipped very quickly, but there was a lot of people who thought the Nets were a good pick to upset, and they aren't a typical 7 seed. I think we can all agree. Even if the Celtics do beat the Nets are not a typical 7 seed, and they are an extremely tough out, regardless of if it's a 4, 5, 6 game series. The Nets are still a tough team for the Celtics to compete against for an entire stretch. But yeah, I mean, if they win in 4 or 5 games, yeah, I mean, I'll admit that I was wrong about it. I had Celtics in 7, so of course I thought it would be closer if in fact it ends up that way. But I'm not thinking that far ahead. I need to see the Celtics win on the road before I start thinking about 5 games and all this stuff.
Yeah, it is hard to take out an individual game with how close this has been and say it has any outstanding impact beyond just one game. And that's how the Celtics are looking at it, of course, which I think is smart. They've been very focused in this series on a play-to-play, quarter-to-quarter basis, and even game-to-game, certainly. I don't think they're getting caught up in any of this, which is great. They've certainly seemed to be the more focused team in this series. Kyrie, kind of I say antic-free night, but there was some.
Oh, we lose him again? There was some what? Can't hear you. Can't hear you. We can't. Can you hear him, Sherrod?
No, I couldn't hear him at all.
All right, Bobby's gone. It's back to the 2-man. It's back to the 2-man game. Me and Sherrod.
Just how we started.
Wait. Still can't hear you, Bobby. Still can't hear you.
Just heard him a second ago. Then he went out.
And the technical difficulties tonight at the TD Garden, folks. But this is live. This is the beauty of doing the show live. We'll do it live, as they say. So that's a good stat there. 40-1. The Celtics are 40-1 when leading a playoff series 2-0. I think that's the stat, unless I butchered that. Yeah, 40-1. And the one loss is to the LeBron James-led Cavaliers. Sorry, not Cavaliers. Heat in 2018. We all remember that. So that is the history of the Celtics. So it has been done. And listen, if the Nets win Game 3, is anyone sitting here stunned besides Bobby Manning? Because I certainly wouldn't be stunned. I know what the Nets are capable of, and you give them a couple days to look at the.
I wouldn't be stunned.
Get their minds right and get their and if Steve Nash and his coaching staff have any reason to be in the NBA at all, then they have to come up with something to get Durant easier looks, or to get him away from the constant physicality. I read a quote actually on Twitter right here. Durant playing this is Durant talking about the Celtics. They're playing 2 or 3 guys on me sometimes when I'm off the ball, mucking up actions. I see Horford leaving his man and coming over to hit me sometimes. There's 2 or 3 guys hitting me wherever I go. Nature of the beast in the playoffs. So it's pretty apparent that, the Celtics' plan is to make it as difficult and uncomfortable and physical for Kevin Durant as possible. Just throw him off his game, throws timing off. Timing, it's almost like in the NFL.
Shot 20 free throws. They don't care. They're going to send him there if they have to.
Quarterback crushes the dude at the line of scrimmage, throws the timing all off the offense's sets. If that's what the Celtics find is working for them, then they're gonna do everything they can to slow him up and slow that game down for them.
It's a tricky game. If you're gonna foul as much as you do here, you gotta hope that it doesn't throw off your rotations at all. And they've come dangerously close to that over the last 2 games here. Each of their bigs fouled 2 times in the first quarter of game 1. Horford fouled out about midway through the 4th here, but the Celtics were hitting shots at such a high level at that point that they created enough separation for it not to matter. So it's a fine line there. This series has been officiated very tightly, but it's been even. And Ime even said that, both sides are frustrated with it, but they're both working through it. And I feel like the free throws, the fouls, it's all been even across the board. You're getting some touch fouls on Brooklyn. Durant was in foul trouble himself. So that needs to stay the case for the Celtics to be able to play the brand of defense that they want here. Unfortunately, I think Ime does a good job of, not complaining with the refs, but just kind of saying, whatever you're going to call here, keep it even and let us find where the line is. And Grant even talked about it loosening up into the 4th quarter in game 1. I felt similar about this game as well. So the Celtics just stayed the course, dealt with those fouls where they got them, didn't complain too much, but overall set the tone physically on the defensive side of the court. And you see it, like Sherrod. Durant goes into the post. He's getting banged around. They're going low on him, trying to bat that ball out. Horford's ripping for the ball every single time. They're being insanely aggressive, and it's working.
And I think it should be too is they do it in transition too, right? Like the way Al stripped them.
That foul on Claxton was a great play by Smart.
Well, yeah, that too. But I just mean in general, like the way they've been guarding Durant, because he likes to. That's the way he rolls, especially in open spaces and in transition. And the Celtics have just been tough with him, even in that aspect. That's been huge.
So Celtics go up 2-0, 114-107 win in game 2 in Boston. Game 3 is Saturday night, 7:30 in Brooklyn. Guys, we've been going for a while now, hour 50. Want to thank everybody who's been hanging on. I hope
you guys talked about Brown.
Yeah, we've talked about Brown.
Yeah, we did.
Talked about Brown a couple of times, Bobby. And I want to give everybody their final thoughts, obviously. So, Bobby, feel free to take that one. But before we do, I just want to say our show, The Garden Report, is brought to you by com.com. That's com.com/garden for 40% off a premium subscription. And everybody on this show uses it and loves it. So thank you to Com. And, guys, be sure to check it out. We can be found CLNS Media on YouTube. A lot of people are watching on our main account. We have a Celtics account as well that is just Celtics content. We also have a Patriots account with the NFL draft coming up. That's a great place. Evan Lazar is holding it down over there. And we just started a new Patriots podcast. I think it's called the Interference Podcast, or something along those lines. Andrew Callahan. Hopefully I'm not. Yeah, Pat's Interference is what it's called. Great podcast. A lot of great guests on the first episode. I know Tom Curran is on that one. My guy, Sherrod's guy, Tom Curran, former teammate of ours at CSN New England, now NBC Boston, and there's a couple other guests. So check out the Pats. Bruins are heating up as well. Playoffs are coming up. So a lot of good things going on, and we have you covered for all of the happenings going around the Boston sports scene. It's going to be fun the next couple of days leading up to game 3. And I think all 3 of you guys are going to Brooklyn. Is that accurate?
Yep.
That is.
Wow. So I'm literally, and I think John's even going to Brooklyn. I might be wrong, but you could be.
Drive down, Jimmy. It's easy.
I might be the only one holding it down here in Boston. You know what? I might have to do a watch party.
Drive down. It's easy.
I might pick a bar in Boston and do like 3/4 of a watch party and then book it back to my place just so I don't feel so left out by myself. But all that being said,
it's not like we're all carpooling there, bro. But I hear what you're saying.
Well, no, Sherrod, aren't you driving Bobby and Josue down, dude?
That'd be hell no.
Yeah, Sherrod's thing. Sherrod does his own thing. He does his own thing. But, let's go around the horn here. Closing thoughts on this win, and we'll start with Sherrod, the man of the show here. What you got, man?
Good win, good team win. Lots of guys stepped up to handle their business. Brooklyn's in a bit of a pickle, and I just don't see them finding their way out of this one. the Celtics have kind of exposed them. That's the beautiful thing about the playoffs. It exposes you, you're good and the not so good. And it's pretty clear that Brooklyn, they've got some work to do because the Celtics have not played anywhere close to, I think, their best basketball, and yet they've got a nice commanding 2-zip lead. So
there you go. I
Yeah, I mean,
Josue,
if you're the Celtics, man, you got to just take this focus on the road and just try to take one, because again, the way the body language was from Brooklyn when they looked up and saw it as a 7-point game, and it seemed like every time they put the ball on the floor, there was someone in front of them or two guys in front of them. It was just like, all right, this is it. Like, trying to get to the free throw, I just think if the Celtics were able to win Game 3, like, you could really just completely, as Sherrod say, just snatch their soul. Like, they start thinking, do we really want to fly back to Boston? Do we even have a chance to come back in this series? Like, I'm not saying that they'll just flat out
They could,
quit,
Josue. That's always been there.
I don't know if they'll flat out quit, but you'll put them on the verge of doing that, and you give them a solid first half in that Game 4. Who knows what would happen? It would be far from my prediction. I would be surprised if that were to happen. If you ask me, one of those games, I don't know if it's Game 3, but one of those games, if I had to guess, probably Brooklyn wins that. But I really, again, I see the Nets coming back here in Boston, but I don't know if I can stick with my prediction in 6. Maybe they get it done in 5. We'll see. But yeah, I just more the same from the Celtics defensively. Continue to incorporate guys like Grant Williams and Peyton Pritchard, make them feel a part of this thing, and I think they're starting to feel that after Game 2, so that's huge. And Derek White, I'm not worried about. I think he'll give you one of those 16, 17-point performances, I think, on the road. One of these games in Game 3 or 4. So you have that to look forward to. But yeah, if you're the Celtics, man, you're feeling really good about yourself right now. You really got the Nets in their head and trying to figure out what they're going to do. I mean, when you got Kyrie talking about, their head coach has the keys to our success, it's just like, whoa, like, where's your confidence?
I love that.
Where's your confidence?
That's my favorite
superstar?
Story to come out of Postgame right now.
Like, where's your confidence, superstar? I mean, look, this could be the passing of the torch. This could be just the maturation of the Celtics. However you want to word it, however the narrative you feel like fits best. I mean, this is it. So let's have to go and sort of finish things off, but also keep that same strength in Brooklyn and see if they can finish this thing off either over there or in Game 5 here in Boston.
Quick on Tatum. Brilliant job passing out these double teams the first 2 games. The Celtics wouldn't survive games where he started as poorly as he did in these first quarters, but he was just passing so well that they were staying close off his facilitating, which unimaginable a year ago. Brown, though, we fail to mention him enough on this show. We know how that rolls. He snatched this game from Brooklyn. I mean, this was a team win, certainly, but he made sure it happened early in the 4th with that stretch. After such a brutal third, turned the ball over, out of sorts, mistakes, big laps leaving Curry open from 3, all over the place. Ime even saw the game just moving too fast for him. And then he slowed it down, hit shots, was methodical with the ball at the start of the 4th, and again, being that finisher. That's his sweet spot. Not dribbling around too much, not trying to create from the perimeter, catching and shooting, finishing around the basket, all sweet spots for him. And he just blew them through the finish line the early 4th there. You're down 17, and then you end up 9 there. 10 straight points to start the 4th. That he's had a lot of stretches in TD Garden where he's just hitting shots in succession and the roof blows off the place. This had to be his best one yet. This was just a ginormous performance after playing so poorly. We would have opened the show talking about how poorly Brown played if they lost and it being on him. He flipped that, and he was the biggest reason they won, I thought.
Yeah, we did make sure that Sherrod will back me up on this. We did make sure we gave Jalen his dues tonight.
There you go.
And I don't think we gave him enough dues after.
By the way, John called them the 5th most important Celtic.
No, he didn't say that. He did not say that. He got his words twisted.
Let me count him out. Tatum, Rob was number 2, Smart was up there, and then he mentioned Horford.
Yeah.
So
I think he said you could argue. I think you can argue depending on the series. Certain players have different levels of importance. I think we can all agree Horford is important in this series due to their
Brown's number 2. He's number 2 on this team.
You can't put Rob. He's not putting Rob and Horford up there. He's saying that because Rob's out, Horford kind of vaults up there importance-wise because without Horford, It's just Horford and Tice.
Yeah,
right
but
now.
it doesn't matter. Brown's number 2.
Yeah,
It's
no, and I think at the end of the day, I think we all can agree that Brown's importance.
You couldn't replace him. No one can do this
Right.
if he
You
goes
wouldn't even
out.
be in the
Grant.
you wouldn't even be in the position you're in today if Brown wasn't
Yeah.
out there.
And listen, I don't want to say like, oh, Rob doesn't matter, but they've handled that well. They've shown that they have the pieces to persevere through that. They're going to need him next round if they get there, but they've sustained well on their top 10 offense and top 10 defense still without him now,
Yep.
going on 3 weeks. So I think Brown's really cemented himself here as that number 2 guy, even though I think we all talked, pretty extensively about how Rob could be in that conversation. Brown's a guy you couldn't replace. What are you going to go to Neesmith? So I just want to get in on that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Neesmith. That was kind of a shot, but
Way
Yeah,
to dig at Neesmith.
Yeah, just a unbelievable ricochet shot at Neesmith in the
Yeah.
final minute.
I'm here for it though. I'm here for
Yeah.
it.
motivation.
I'll finish by saying I just love the fight out of this team. I can't believe this is the same team that we saw to start this season and really a couple months.
It's unreal.
It's baffling to me. I can't explain it. I won't even try to. I'm just going to enjoy it. Tonight, I just saw a team that they're just kind of like fighting like dogs out there now. They have a swagger and intensity about them. I think led by Tatum and Brown that the rest of the team has bought into as well. Really, I should say led by Ime. I think we can all agree that it started with Ime at the top, but Tatum and Brown put it out there on the court, and the rest of the team responded. So credit to the Celtics right now. They're playing a more complete brand of basketball and showing the Nets really, how to play both sides of the ball and play hard from start to finish. So that's my final thought. I will also say that I failed to mention our Discord. CLNS Celtics Discord is where it's at. We get 2 days off here before the next game. So if you are watching the show and you're a Celtics fan, you're going to want to check out our Discord, clnsmedia.com/Discord. It's all Celtics fans. The only way you can join the Discord is by going to that link and signing up. And it's a fun time. People are on it during the game. People are on it before, after the games. There's a lot of fun chatter back and forth in there. So check out the Discord. And other than that, we'll catch you guys Saturday night, little Saturday night game. People might be maybe a little lubed up, a couple of beers. Maybe they're having a good time out there. But I will say this, final thought. While we might think, or some of us here might think it's over, Bobby, who just bailed on us here, Vegas has the Nets, and Josue is falling apart. And
Everyone from Discord, stop talking, all right? You're vibrating my phone. Go ahead.
Vegas has the Nets as 3.5-point favorites going into Saturday night's game. So it's far from over from at least the national perspective. So expect a fun one Saturday night, and we will talk to you guys after that one.
Absolutely. See y'all, bro.